Thank you, Lord. Man of the prophet. Yes. Holy Spirit, take over, let's rock out. I done picked the word up and put the Glock down. Evil thoughts trying to come to me and they got shot down. Cause the Holy Spirit got me up, I am not down. Say yes to God, now I'm free, I am not bound. Satan had me bound on the leash, but I'm not now. I heard the sound of the king is how I got found. So if the devil trying to scheme, it get knocked out. Demon trying to tweak, get slept. Demon trying to sleep, come on. Demon trying to tweak, get stepped on like a floor bug. I be sweeping them like leftovers on the floor rug. I be really saving lost souls, this war run. Depression coming knocking at my door, couldn't afford none. Steady adding up them blessings, trying to hoard some. You better really get yourself together for the Lord come. Lord really grabbed me out that bondage, I was acting wild. I was shooting dice in the hood, smoking black and mild. Now I'm feeling better and I'm good, better ask around. Accepted Jesus Christ, now I'm full, I brag and shout. I got the whole thing for the hood, not a half amount. Demon running up, trying to tweak, I cast them out. Shout the word of God from my seat, had them lashing out. Now I'm back in town for a week at my pastor house. Holy Spirit, take over, let's rock out. I done picked the word up and put the Glock down. Evil thoughts trying to come to me and they got shot down. Cause the Holy Spirit got me up, I am not down. Say yes to God, now I'm free, I am not bound. Satan had me bound on the leash, but I'm not now. I heard the sound of the king is how I got found. So if the devil trying to scheme, it get knocked out. All right, shalom, shalom, everybody. Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we shall continue the journey of digging into the African Israelite Diaspora. All right, today we shall continue the journey of looking into the African Israelite Diaspora. Shalom, shalom to everybody in the chat and who will be tuning in later. Today, we'll be presenting this live in presentation form. So I hope you all enjoy it. And if you watched the last video I put out concerning this topic, we focus mainly on Israelite migrations into Africa, all right, showing different migrations of Israelites into Africa from various captivities, events, and casualties that led to Israelites ending up into sub-Saharan Africa, all right? And one of the main things, or one of the main stories we focused on specifically last video that I put out, or in part one of the African Israelite Diaspora, was the traditions of Eldad and the migration of Israelites into the Maghreb and Western Sahel regions of Western Africa. And that's what we're going to focus on today. People known as the Banai Israel or Banu Israel or Banai Israel in the Western Maghreb or in the Western Sahel of Western Africa. And we're going to try to identify who these people are or were during this time. Again, just showing the history of the African Israelite Diaspora in Western Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa specifically. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to get into the information. Any questions, comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will answer them throughout the presentation, or once we finish up, I'll open up the floor. All right. So 1 second while I pull up this presentation. Okay. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everyone enjoyed their Shabbat as well yesterday. We're going to continue to bring out this groundbreaking information because there's not a lot of channels out here bringing out this information on the Israelite Diaspora. So I can't pull it up this way. So I guess I just got to share my entire screen. Let me know if you cannot see it, or let me know if you can. I will enjoy that or like that. So let me pull up my presentation. Then we're going to get started. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let me get this off. Let me get this ticker off. Then we can get started, family. So the Banai Israel or the African Israelite Diaspora is what we will be dealing with today. Let me go back. African Israelite Diaspora is what we're dealing with today. So when dealing with the African Israelite Diaspora, it's key to bring up the traditions of Eldad, the Danite, to establish Jews or Israelites in the Western Sahel and the Maghreb region in West Africa, period. This is coming from Archives Mauritanians, page 71. And we're going to be reading from the highlighted section to the left. Of course, this is written in French, but I have the translation to the right. It reads, Eldad certainly visited certain Jewish tribes of or in the Sahara. He has heard many things said of certain others. He knows his uses and beliefs that to the point that Mr. Epstein has succeeded in identifying them with those of the Philashas whose common Hellenic origin with the ancient warriors of Caesarea had been supposed by us. It is also possible that he confused the Beni Musa with the powerful tribe of the Maasai, which he may have not visited himself. Since we have managed to identify most of the names of the Negro kingdoms with geographical regions of the Adrar region, of the French Mauritania, and even of Western Sudan. So when we're looking at Eldad's traditions and the locations that he went to, these authors were actually able to identify most of those territories and names with Negro kingdoms in the Adrar region, French Mauritania, and in the Western Sudan. So he was in West Africa, essentially. So I'm going to put emphasis on the Adrar region and Mauritania, because that's what we're going to be starting off with today. So going to the Negro land revisited, we're going to learn about the role of the Jews and the date of their arrival in the Western Sudan. All right. It is clearly outlined, or it clearly comes from Lee Chandler, who suggested that some of the inhabitants of southern Mauritania and the Western Sahel had either been Hebrews or Judaized Berbers before their conversion to Islam in the 11th century AD. Lee Chandler's suggestion was based on two arguments. And of course, I'm arguing that they had been Hebrews. The first was that the Senegalese Moors or Muslims resembled the Jews of Palestine, and that these Moors favored typical Jewish names such as Ibrahim, Yaqub, Yosef, Isaac, and Miriam. All this pointed to their Hebraic ancestry. The second argument came from the 14th century Moroccan historian Ibn Abizar, who wrote that the Lamtuna chief Tarashna el-Lamtuni, who preceded the emergence of the Almoravid movement, had died in a holy war against Black Jews in southern Mauritania. Interesting. A similar claim appears in Mauritanian oral tradition according to the Almoravid Amir Abu Bakr B. Omar died in a fight against Black Jews whom he expelled from Adrar. This detail must have been transferred into tradition from the written Arabic sources. Ibn Zar's version of the Almoravid history seems to have been familiar to the nomads of the Sahara. All right, so we see here that it was Jews fighting in places like Adrar and Mauritania, which I said we're going to place emphasis on, against these Berber kingdoms or against this Berber force. So the question is, who exactly were these Black Jews of Mauritania Mauritania and Morocco? I believe these people to be the Bafor, the ancestors of the Seniki people. All right. I believe these people to be the Bafor, the ancestors of the Seniki people. In fact, the Golden Book tells us that the earliest inhabitants of the Western Sahara are African Black agriculturalists known as Bafor. They were subsequently replaced by the Berber. The latter still live in the Western Sahara. So these Bafor are the ancestors of the Seniki and Mandi people, and they also were known as the first inhabitants of the Western Sahara. So let's dig into these Bafor people. And to do that, we're going to go to Islam in West Africa, religion, society, and politics to the 1800s. And it reads, the idea represented in these accounts of the diligent Jewish cultivators who had introduced the digging of wells into an echo of oral traditions current in the Western Sahara. All over the Western Sahara, Arab and Nzaga-speaking tribes remember the Bafor among the old inhabitants of Adrar and Tangan, who were eliminated by the Sanhanja tribes. All right. So peep the I guess you can say peep the way I'm lining this out for you all. All right. We keep seeing that Adrar being named, that we keep seeing the Western Sahara and places like southern Mauritania being brought up. So just continue to digest what I'm bringing out, because it's all going to come together. But of course, it says that they were the original inhabitants of Adrar and Tangut, who were later eliminated by the Sahanja tribes or the Amavars. It says the Bafor were, according to some traditions, Jews from Wadi Nun, who introduced to the Western Sahara the digging of wells and the planting of palms. Other traditions claim that the Malims, the despised artisans of the Western Sahara, are descendants of the Bafor and are referred to as Yahuds because they had been Jews. As early as the 12th century, Al-Idrisis knew about the ancient inhabitants of the Western Sahara, which she called Kumnuria, who had been uprooted and scattered by the Sanhaja, all right, the same people are the Bafor. Al-Idrisis adds, according to what the merchant relate, the people of the country of Kumnuria claim that they are Jews. The persistence of these traditions from the 12th to the 15th centuries makes it more difficult to dismiss this or them as mere legends of no historical value. Perhaps one might relate the vague traditions about Jews in the Western Sahara with more detailed traditions about the existence of flourishing Jewish communities in Drar and other parts of southern Morocco. So we keep saying that these people were from places specifically like Drar and Tangut. All right, this is in Mauritania. Right, this is in Mauritania. And we also learned that these people were Jews from Wadi Nun, which is also a place or in the Drar region of Morocco. So these Bafor people who gave rise to the Mandi Saniki people were originally in places like Morocco and Mauritania. Now, give me 1 second. I'm gonna take my self off the screen real quick because I believe my PowerPoint is in a mode where it's timed, where I was practicing earlier or going over this earlier. So I believe it's still in rehearsal mode. So let me take this out because it keeps skipping while I'm reading. So give me 1 second to try to figure this out. And if I can't, then we're just going to go through it regardless. All right, so I believe I have it. So let me go back to it and we're going to continue going. I hope you all are enjoying this thus far. And thank you all for tuning in. Shalom, Brother Lion Farm, and shalom, Brother Isaiah. So continuing on, it goes on to say, specifically right here in the second paragraph, it reads off, in Mauritania, according to Arab sources and certain oral traditions of the Western Africa, the first inhabitants of Western Africa were the Bafor, whose Jewish origin is enigmatic and controversial. All right, so again, I laid out the foundation, showing you the traditions of Jews in the Western Sahara, showing you that the Bafor were the first inhabitants of the Western Sahara, and showing you how they have connections to Jews. Now, let's wrap this all together in a bow. Following a process of organization, functioning, and decline of all Sudanese empires described by Charles Martel, one might assume that the Bafor Empire existed several centuries before Islam. These Bafor seem to have introduced the cultivation of palm trees, horse breeding, new irrigation methods, and metallurgy. According to tradition, reported by Andre J. Lucas, the Bafor were the first ones to plant palm trees and to dig deep and large wells. The Mu'almin, or craftsmen, make and have always made works of art. They are called Yahud because, according to legend, only Jews in Mauritania were craftsmen. And you know that the Mu'almin have neither homeland nor tribe. All right, so we see that these people are referred to Yahuds because they are craftsmen, or specifically Malim or Mu'almin. All right, this is the name of their caste system. Something else to take into account, which is very, very interesting, is that they introduce horse breeding, new irrigation methods, the cultivation of palm trees, as well as metallurgy. Sounds a lot like, other related Bantu populations. So again, these people were known as Yahuds or blacksmiths or Malam. All right, this is all synonymous for their specific metalsmith or blacksmith class amongst the Bafor. So let's get into the blacksmiths. Malam, or a variant of it in both Hebrew and Arabic terminology and usage, is an honorific designating not only a political elite, but also a scholar, a literate person, a fine craftsperson, the master of craft, or the head of a workshop. Mu-al-Min, an obvious variant, is used by the metalsmiths attached to the nomadic clans and lineages that transverse Mauritania. Their leatherworking wives are addressed as Mu-al-Mima. According to oral traditions, their heritage is associated with the historical obscure enigmatic Bafor. It goes on to say again, the Malams descend from the Bafor. It is they who taught the autochthonous Berbers ironworking. They were Jews of race, all right? It is they who taught the autochthonous Berbers ironworking. They were Jews of race. And we know that the Berbers have been in North Africa, or specifically Morocco, for a while, especially with a lot of them descending from the Ibero-Mauritanians. And these Bafors would have came in and taught these people ironworking. The Malams making have always made works of art. One calls them Yahud because of the legend, only the Jews in Mauritania were artisans. So again, this is country traditions. This is country legend. This is Mauritanian legend that these people were Jews because only artisans were Jews, only blacksmiths were Jews, and these people were associated with these castes. Shalom, sister. Thank you for tuning in. So not only do we see these people being associated with blacksmith and Yahud Jewish caste, we see them making Jewish types of artwork as well, which is very interesting. It says, until recently, the piece of jewelry most favored by Jewish women throughout North Africa was the triangular fibula, created by meticulous soldering minute rings together in a filigree-derived technology, often with attached triangular wings. Classically, such fibulae were used in Paris to fasten the draped costume worn by North African Phoenician and Roman women during the 1st century CE. And recently, a number of gold pieces very similar in design, also using filigree techniques, were unearthed in an 11th century coche of jewelry from Africa, which is in present-day Tunisia. Sometimes inscribed with a seal of Solomon, sometimes with Hebrew, Arabic, or Judeo-Arabic script, often framing floral motifs. They came uniquely from the hands of the Jewish Malams. All right, remember who are the Malams? These are the Bafor. So they came from the hands of the Jewish Malams in the traditional Jewish jewelry centers of southwest Morocco and the Jebel Armor in Algeria, both reputed, or both regions of reputed Bafor origin. So these Bafor people, ancestors of the Mende, ancestors of the Seniki people, they actually made a Judeo-Arabic type of jewelry. And here's actually a picture of that jewelry. As we read in the source, it said that they had some types of jewelry inscripted with the seal of Solomon, as we see here. And again, this was worn by women. We see the floral motifs right here in this specific jewelry. All right. And right here, we see the Judeo-Arabic script in this jewelry. All right. Hebrew and Arabic script in this jewelry. So this is coming from the hands of these Bafor of Mauritania and Morocco. All right. And looking at the comment section, the sister, she just made a comment that is true. Talking about the Hausa in northern Nigeria. If you go read this source right here, Judaic Threads, it makes mention to the Hausa Muslims being referenced as this as well. So, sister, if you go look at Judaic Threads in West African tapestry, it actually talks about what you just stated as well. So I do not disagree with what you just said. But again, here's the jewelry being associated with these Bafor Mulams, who are reputed to be of Jewish origin. So although these Bafor were originally in places like Mauritania and also southern Morocco, they ended up making their way here to Senegal. So let's read about that. Going back to the Black Jews of Africa, we're going to read about that, where it says that Al-Adrisi's testimony informs us that the Bafor spread out in the west of Mauritania on the Atlantic coast when they were persecuted by the Almoravids. All right, and this is the same people known as the Sanhaja. To this important Bafor dispersion of the Judaized blacks of Ajar and Tangan, one must add that the Bafor fraction that lives on fish on the coast. All right, so they were dispersed from Ajar and Tangan, and guess what? They were known as the Judaized blacks. So where were they dispersed to? According to Charles Montel, the repression first by the Almoravids, then more pronouncedly in the 16th century, pushed a part of the Judaized Bafor to the south of the Senegal River, where they are thought to have merged with the Wolof populations and were named CB Baor, Badapayul, or Badapalul. The oral traditions that present the fishermen of Mauritanian coast, excuse me, let me read that again. The oral traditions that presents or that presents the fishermen of the Mauritanian coast, the Irigumen, the Shingala, and the Ulid Amid bin Diamond as descendants of the ancient Bafor corroborates Al-Idris's account, and observers noted that they concealed their Jewish origin. Now, although the Bafor themselves were persecuted and pushed southward into Senegal, they left descending tribes. So they left tribes that I guess you can say will be related to them, such as the Immergruen, the Shingala, and the Ulid Amid bin Diamond in southern Mauritania, and they also concealed their Jewish origin. So let's continue on. It goes on to say that scholars, or this is coming from Judaic threads in West African tapestry, no more forever. It says scholars who have addressed the enigmatic Bafor attribute their presence in the Adjar region or area of Mauritania to migrations from the city of Silamajasa or Silamasa in the southeast Morocco, the regions of the Jebel, Nefusa in Tunisia, and the Mozab of Algeria. Each of these areas inhabited by large coexisting assembly of Ibadite and Jewish traders who maintained an intense commercial relation across the Sahara, as well as by concentration of Jewish artisans under puritanical Ibadite protection. All right. It goes on to say, or tradition also credits the Bafor with the founding of the city of Odan or Wadan in the Adrar region. So let's look at the Senegalese traditions of these Bafor coming into Senegal. So according to Senegalese traditions, they recorded in the last century, also claimed that the CB Bafor were Jews, initially forced south by the Almoravids in the 11th century and further south by the Hassaniya in the 16th century, who settled among the Wolof populations, where they are still designated as CB Baor. Another set of locally recorded indigenous traditions noted that the Bafor were Jews of Oid Noon in southwest Morocco, who had descended into the Adrar region with other Berber tribes and were eventually integrated into the nomadic clans, traversing the Trezor region in Mauritania. Some of the nomadic Trezor families consider themselves descendants. Other accounts credit the Bafor with the introduction of irrigation and the construction of stone-lined wells with intensive subterranean galleries, building technologies involving masonry, carpentry, and metalworking skills, all attributed to the Bani Israel. All right, so that's what we're really here for. All right, we're here to see how these people connect to the Bani Israel, and we just showed it. All right. All the traditions that these people have connect them to the Bani Israel. And once we get to the end of this, I'm going to wrap it up and show how all these tribes I'm about to bring out connect to this people known as the Bani Israel. So other accounts credit the Bafor with the introduction of irrigation and the construction of stone-lined wells with extensive subterranean galleries, building technologies involving masonry, carpentry, and metalworking skills, all attributed to the Bani Israel. Another thing I want you all to remember is that we read that the Bafor were the first to plant palm trees in the Western Sahara. If we look at Psalms 92 verses 12, it reads, "The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree, shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of Yah. They shall bring forth fruit in old age. They shall be fat and flourishing to show that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteous in him." Why did I bring this verse out? I brought this verse out to just show that there is indeed a tradition of palm trees amongst the ancient Israelites. Not only that, to the right here, we have a Roman coin showing palm trees in the land of Israel. So why is this important? Why is this palm tree connection important? I will tell you why. And we're going to go to the genomes of ancient date palm trees germinated from 2,000-year-old seeds to find out why. Specifically because the type of palm trees we find in West Africa are the same type of palm trees that we find in the land of Israel. It reads, we applied this resurrection genome approach to date palms, which represents one of the best examples of successful germination of ancient seeds. Date palms, which is the name of the palm tree, are a domesticated fruit crop species that are the iconic perennial plant of the arid lands of West Asia and North Africa. So let's read about the cultivation of it real quick. From there, dates presumably spread westward and were widely cultivated in Egypt from at least the from at least the mid-second millennium BCE, and further west to the Maghreb at least by the first millennium BCE. So these specific palm trees, date palm trees, were said to have reached the Maghreb, like Morocco and Mauritania, both locations that we know the Bafor were in around the first millennium BCE. It says the southern Levant is situated at the crossroads of Asia, Africa, and Europe, and during the 11th century BC, this area saw the rise of an ancient geopolitical entity of Judea. Date palms grown in antiquity around Jericho and along the Dead Sea in Judea were referred to as Judean date palms. By the 19th century, however, no trace of the Judean date palms remained, as date palms agriculture was extinguished in the area. Although Judean palms are believed to be extinct, it is unclear if some of their descendants still live among modern date plant varieties. And what we come to find out is these specific Judean date trees made their way into West Africa and are proposing by way of the Bafor. It says in the Nile Valley, date palms were present as early as the pre-dynastic period, 5,000 years ago, but were not extensively cultivated in Egypt until at least the New Kingdom 3,500 years ago. But when we're dealing with the Bafor in the further west, date palm remains are dated to about 8,400 to 4,400 years ago in Libya, but are not found in the Sahara Maghreb area until much later. All right. Again, so we see these date palm trees start to pop up in the Maghreb, specifically as it said on this page in the first millennium BC. And this also lines up with the time we would start to see the Bafor come in. And we're going to line it up in a few slides with the oral traditions of their descendants. And here we see the North African specific Phoenix dactylifer and the West Asian Phoenix dactylifer, which is, I guess you can say, the scientific name of the date palm tree. And remember, the Bafor, according to some traditions, were Jews from Wadi Nun who taught the planting of palm trees to the Western Sahara. And again, here's a distribution of these date palms in the Sahel region of Africa, specifically in these places like Mauritania and even Senegal, where we know the Bafor were, and where it's said that they cultivated palm trees. So I'm going to take a second to look at the comment section, and we're going to move on to another people I would like to connect to these Bani Israel, and they are the descendants of the Bafor, the Seniki. So give me 1 second. I'll check out the comment section, see what's going on, and we'll get back to it. All right. We shall see, brother. We shall see on that theory about them being descendants of the Kifian culture. All right, sister said. Okay. That is true. That is facts. That is facts. In order, Nigeria deals in the date palms as well. And indeed, brother. Indeed. So let's deal with the Seniki. And to deal with the Seniki, we shall be dealing with the rise of the Kingdom of Ghana, or as it was called by its inhabitants, Wagadu, which was founded around the 100 CE by the Seniki people, who, according to their tradition, migrated from the city of Sunim or Aswan in Upper Egypt to the region of where? Southeastern Mauritania. All right, so even they have in their traditions that they made their way into Mauritania as well, but they're coming from Sonin or Aswan. And if you watch my part 1 of African Israelite Diaspora, you will know that what Aswan and Sonin was a Jewish colony. All right, and this source is coming from Encyclopedia of African American History. The Seniki migrations would have been taking place from Aswan around 486 BCE. All right, and that's according to Boubacar Lam, who situates the departure of the Seniki ancestors, the Bafor, from Egypt no later than 486 BCE as a result of extractions of the Persian king Darius, who reigned between 522 to 586 BCE on the inhabitants of the Nile Valley. The foundations of the society and the state would later become the Empire of Ghana, would have occurred no later than 460 BCE. All right, and this is coming from the African Fact Book. And what's very interesting about this is that a few hundred years later, we have Jeremiah on the scene who's actually warning Jews, who made their way into Egypt that, evil will befall them, that curses and plagues and things like that would come upon them, and that they would not make their way back into the land of Egypt. All right, and that's actually Jeremiah 44 verses 1 through 7. If anybody want to throw that in the chat. So continuing on, we're gonna get into the Kingdom of Ghana, dealing specifically with the Seniki, and we're gonna line this all the way up. It says, as the most northern of the Mandi peoples, the Seniki were also in contact with the nomads of the Sahara, from whom they acquired small horses brought from northern Africa. The Senikis, or the early Senikis, superior iron weaponry and horses made it possible for them to establish a kingdom. All right, and on a genetic sense, we know who would have been bringing this, or who we know who would have been bringing this iron weaponry in. They gradually expanded their territory and dominated neighboring rulers until by the 10th century, the kingdom had become an empire. Visitors from the North African began referring to the Seniki state as Ghana, but the Seniki themselves and other Mandi peoples know the ancient kingdom as Wagadu. So let's look into the legend of Wagadu. All right, so let's look at the legend of Wagadu. So the legend often begins by describing how the ancestor, Dinga, came from somewhere in the Middle East. So that's one thing we have to take into account. The Seniki, all right, the Mandi people, the Bafor, they do not claim to be stagnant. They do not claim that they've always been in West Africa. All right, they claim to come from somewhere in the Middle East. And we're going to pinpoint that. Some say he stayed for a time at Gini, an ancient city that still exists on the Niger River north of modern Mali's capital, Bamako. Dinga later moved to the town of Dia in a middle delta, where he married and had 2 sons who became Seniki ancestors in other towns of the Sahel. Dinga movements from place to place are the storyteller's way of explaining the presence of the Seniki populations in various places of the Sahel. And remember, those Seniki populations would also include the Bafor. He is said to have eventually arrived at a place southwest of Niaro in today's Mali. It goes on to say, Dinga's emergence victorious, and married the 3 daughters of a chief genie. The sons of these wives became the ancestors of many Seniki clans, one of which was the Kissi. It was the Kissi that became the ruling clan of Wagadu. In the next episode of the legend, Dinga was grown old and blind. He had decided that before he dies, he wanted to pass his chiefly power on to his oldest son, Khan. According to one version of the story, after Dinga died, Kessi had fled from the wrath of his enraged older brother. And I'm just skipping through this to summarize the history and legend and formation of this kingdom. But I am going to bring some important things out. It says later, after the kingdom was founded, they became chiefs or governors of the 4 provinces. So Dinga eventually had 4 children, and they became the king or rulers over these 4 provinces. One of the sons, Jeab-Kissi, set out to find a new location where he could settle, and he wound it up at a place called Kumbi Sahel, which is located in southern part of what is now Mauritania, just north of the border that shares it with Mali. So even in their oral traditions, they're telling us they made their way into, or they was in actually Mauritania, just like their ancestors, the Bafor. It goes on to say that when Diaby-Kesse arrived at the site where the town of Kumbi Sahel was to be established, he found it guarded by a giant snake named Beta. In several versions of the legend, Beta is said to have lived in either a well or a cave. Most significantly, the giant snake is usually thought of as a python and is associated with the presence of a water at the location of the new settlement. Diaby-Kesse entered into a pact with the snake Beta. All right, so remember that Diaby-Kesse entered into a pact with the snake Beta. In return from this annual sacrifice, Beta guaranteed that abundant rain would fall on Wagadu and that there will become a plentiful supply of gold. In the new kingdom was called Wagadu and had its capital at Kumbi Sahel. It prospered under the rule of Diaby-Kesse and his descendants, who were known by the title of Magan. It goes on to say the descendants of Diaby-Kesse, the descendants of the four Fado, or commanders of the province, were recognized as the aristocrat clans of the Seniki. These aristocrat clans were collectively called Wago, the term of the name of the kingdom. Wagadu are probably related. Wagadu is a contraction of Wagaduagu, which can be translated as the land of Wago. Once a year, representatives for the four provinces of Wagadu would assemble at Kumbi Sahel to participate in the virgin sacrifice to Beta, the guardian serpent. All right, so let's continue on. And before we get into something, I want to bring out the fact that we do see a Hebrew connection with the rulers of the Seniki kings. For example, we saw that the name of their rulers were known as Magan, and even in the Bible we see, or in the Strong's Concordance in Hebrew, we see that Magan actually means deliverer, and that's according to Strong's H4042. And again, according to the Mandi linguistics, their ruler title is known as Magan, which is chief. All right, so we see a similarity there between the Hebrew title of Magan and the Mandi title of Magan, deliverer and chief. But it continues on saying that after an unspecific number of generations passed, the year arrived when the virgin to be sacrificed happened to be the girlfriend of a young man of noble birth. When the girl was about to be given to Beta, the young man leaped forward with his sword and cut off the snake's head. As Beta's several head went bounding to the sky, it pronounced a dreadful curse. From that time on, no rain would fall on Wagadu, and no more gold would be found there. Deprived of rain and gold, Wagadu declined, came into ruin. Its Seniki people were dispersed, and the countryside became a desert. Now, what in the world is going on here with this legend of a snake known as Beta? Now, I know that might go over some people's heads at first, but I think we can actually make a connection to ancient Israel with this. Again, according to this tradition, they had an ancestor named Dinga that came from somewhere in the Middle East. He made his way into Mauritania, and his sons ended up founding a kingdom where they, guess you could say, brought this type of serpent worship into the kingdom. And we see here, because of no more sacrifices given into this serpent, the kingdom actually fell, which could be punishment from the Most High in the first place. But again, when Diaby-Kesse arrived at the site where the town of Kumbi Sahel was to be established, he found it guarded by a giant snake named Beta. I believe this is a connection to the tribe of Dan. But why do you say that, Will? If we go to the book Understanding Dan, page 41 reads off something interesting. It says, 2 Kings 18 implies that this serpentine figure, Nethusan, had been an object of worship in Jerusalem, in the Jerusalem temple for some time. However, nowhere in the Deuteronomistic story of the earlier kings of Judah is this serpentine mentioned. The possibility must have been entertained then that Nethusan was only recently erected in the temple in Jerusalem, having perhaps been brought from a northern Israelite shrine slash cult center after the collapse or the northern kingdom in 722 BCE. And more than likely, or what I do believe, is that these people do descend from these northern kingdom Israelites that made their way into Aswan and leaving around 460 after being persecuted by Darius, the Persian king. So they would have brought this specific serpent cult or serpent tradition with them, especially if they were Danites. It says it is conceivable that a northern tradition in which the character of Moses figured prominently and with whom the serpent is associated has some measure of positive evaluation for the creature, and so used this figure metaphorically as a reference for the northern tribe of Dan. Finally, storage jars with serpentine decoration have been discovered or recovered in excavations at Tel Dan, supplying further evidence for the positive regard given to this serpentine figure at this site. So even at excavation sites they find in Tel Dan, the territory of Dan, you can see this tradition in the digs. So again, I believe this beta tradition amongst the Seneki is possibly a tribe of Dan connection. But let's continue to see what we have in regards to information. And to do that, we're going to go to the Black Jews of Africa in the Americas. We're going to continue to learn a little more about Dinga. All right. And again, the sister is in the chat. She's making some very, very powerful comments. She's making some very powerful comments that, again, it goes on to a connection between the Nigerian tribes and these tribes that I'm bringing out, as far as traditions and as far as ancestry. So yes, I am aware that you all do have this same type of tradition amongst Nigerians, as well as in Benin and Dahomey. So the sister definitely knows what she's talking about. So going to read from here. It says, thus, the Seneki people who are scattered throughout and beyond the area of ancient Ghana Empire allegedly had traditions that claim an extremist origin for themselves, which invoke the memory of Dinga, their ancestor, who was believed to be of Middle Eastern extraction and to have come from Jerusalem or perhaps from Yemen. Dinga's own direct ancestors were variously believed to be the biblical Job, King Solomon, or David. One French colonial official, Maurice Delafosse, basing his views in part upon these tribal traditions, concluded that the Ghana Empire had been founded by a nomadic group from Northern Africa or Middle Eastern origin, and constructed a theory around a Judeo-Syrian racial origin of the Seneki. And I actually believe he hit that spot on the head, because we're going to see a Judeo Syrian type of tradition amongst these people. And what I mean specifically by Syrian is northern tribes of Israel coming from the Syrian captivity and making their way into this kingdom. So I would say that this kingdom was a mix of a Judeo-Syrian identity as well. So going on to the Black Jews of Africa, history, religion, and identity, continue to expound more on this. Biblical references are found in various West African traditions, as the formation of the blacksmith caste of various legends of Wagadu recorded by Charles Martel relating to the foundation of the ancient kingdom of Ghana. This tradition tells that the founders of this kingdom was the chief blacksmith Dinga, descending from King Solomon. Also remember that their ancestors, the Dinga, were known as the chief blacksmiths, and what were they called? The Yahuds. All right, so just keep that in mind. According to the tradition, when Dinga became blind and was transferring his power, he was tricked by his youngest son in the same way that Isaac tricked Jacob to deprive Esau of his rights as the eldest son. And remember, that was Can. There are different narrations of who Dinga was, but invariably, they established the fact that he was a stranger from afar, probably of white origin. We're not going to dig in too deep into that. Just know that they're mistaking this word for Badan. All right, they're mistaking the word white for Badan. But it goes on to say the lengthy component of the story of the exile of the 10 tribes are found in this myth. African scholars consider the legend of Wagadu as a condensation of stories which serve as archives for the entire ethnic group. First, there is the long Seniki journey from Yemen or Palestine, then the crossing of North Africa through Egypt and what is precisely the desert up to Adrar and Tangan, and the settlements in the further north region of Timbuktu. It must be said that but in this specific cast of Smith's biblical traditions and possible Jewish influences seem to be interrelated to this point that in some regions of Mauritania, for instance, Smiths are called Yahud and Yibro. So again, one thing I really want to point out from here is that it says that the Seniki made their way from Yemen or Jerusalem, coming into North Africa, crossing through Egypt, Aswan, right? And they made their way into where? Adrar and Tangan. We know that this is the same location that the Seniki went. All right, so the Seniki and the Bafor or traditions are the same, with the Bafor staying in Adrar and Tangan, while the Seniki pushed down further south to Kumba Sahel to give rise to Wagadu. All right. So again, we started out with the Bafor earlier, showing how the Bafor were the original inhabitants of Adrar and Tangan, and were actually known as these Jews of this location, and how they gave rise to the Seniki. So let's go to the Negro land revisited, because it's also other Israelite traditions of different Seniki clans that we find in the Sahel. And it says right here that the inhabitants of Gumbu, for instance, who strongly associate themselves with the legendary Wagadu, claim that their ancestors came from the land of Canaan and were Banu Israel, that is Hebrews. After the death of Joseph, they left Egypt and moved to the western Sahel, where they established a large empire ruled by 3 sons of their leader, Sharasahani, Ibinu Haran, called Ukor, Ungara, and Songhai. These 3 brothers are the ancestors of 3 important peoples of the Western Sudan: the Seniki, the Maliki, and the Songhai. All right. And I just want to go back one sentence real quick to identify something right quick. So where it says these 3 brothers, specifically where it says these 3 brothers were called Encore, this is the Seniki people who are actually called Wakor. All right. Also, this is the Seniki or Maliki people who are known as Wagara. And of course, this is the Songhai people who gave rise to the Songhai Empire. According to him, Wagadu was established by conquerors who had came from the east and who had brought with them many elements of Jewish culture. All right. So again, according to tradition, these people descend from Jews who gave rise to sons known as the Wakor, the Wangara, and even the Songhai. And again, these people are known as the Seniki, the Maliki, and even the Songhai. And again, these 2 people, so these 2 tribes right here, will be descendants of the Bafor, and they will all be Mandi speaking peoples or Mandi groups. So let's continue. Back to Black Jews of Africa. We're going to start reading back about Al-Idrisis. Al-Idrisis proves or provides of substantial information about the presence of Jews near the country of Gold in the Western Sahel or present-day Mali. And if you all are noticing or peeping what's going on, I'm dealing specifically with the regions of Timbuktu, Ghana, Mauritania, Morocco. All right, I'm dealing specifically with the people known as the Mandi people. All right. It says there are only 2 cities in this land of Lam, which are not larger than villages. One is called Malah and the other is Da. According to the people of the region, the inhabitants are Jews, but most of them are submerged in empathy and ignorance. He adds, the inhabitants of Kunuria, following the sayings of merchants, claim to be Jews. Their beliefs are a mixture of everything. They are nothing and have no well-established beliefs. Information from his contemporary Zuri, who provides who probably quoted his predecessor's work, supports this account of Al-Idrisis. The inhabitants of Karufan in the region of Timbuktu, following the Jewish religion. One can get there from Gal or Wargla. They read the Torah or Torah. They import silk, cloth, saffron, tinted goods, corice, and pearls. It also mentions that it is tempting to merge this tradition or this information about the Jewish presence in the south of the Sahara with the traditions of Eldad the Danite, who in the 9th century claimed that Jewish tribes ruled these regions. And we already showed you what regions these were if you watch African Israelite Diaspora Part 1. However, this claim has been strongly challenged by Raymond Muni, who considers that these black groups were probably Seniki, who were conquered and dispersed by the neighboring Berbers, and who were really not Islamicized in the time of Al-Idrisis. So, Raymond Muni thought he was doing something by claiming that these people were nothing but Seniki. All right, he tried to, I guess you could say, downplay the narrative of Eldad's tradition by saying, no, they're only Seniki. But who do the Seniki say they were? And what about Eldad's tradition? It must be added to this information that Eldad had been accompanied in his travels. It is let me start over. It says it must be added to this information that Eldad the Danite had been accompanied in his travels by another Jew of the desert who traced his origin to the tribe of Asher, son of Jacob, or among the Mandi or Seniki tribes, all right, to which some trace their origins to the chiefs of the tribes of Israel. So I'm not just digging this information up out of nowhere, family. We indeed find one name, Azer. So remember that. So when Charles Muni on this page tries to downplay the fact that, these people were just Seniki, Eldad the Danite himself said, or is said to have traveled with a Seniki Jew, who in turn is from the tribe of Asher. And this is coming from Archives Moroccains. Now it gets deeper because the Seniki actually do have a connection to Azer. All right, and we're going to read that through the language depth, factual and theoretical explorations with special references to East Africa. It tells us something very interesting. It says Welmers, for example, classifies Azer as a Seniki dialect. Azer has died out in Mauritania and is probably in a process of extinction in Mali. Azar has now effectively vanished, and the last speakers of it in Wadan or Oyudan, remember Wadan or Oyudan was Bafor territory. It says Alubada B. Babu of the Idal al-Hajj died at the beginning of the century, or it is no exaggeration to say that this language, a dialect of Seniki, is dead as far as Mauritania is connected. He remarks that there are only people left who have remnant of the knowledge. He goes on to say he concludes that this remnant knowledge of Azer shows the profound influence of Azar on everyday life in parts of Mauritania, particularly in regions of Tangut and Adrar. Okay, we keep seeing the homeland of the Bafor popping up when it comes to the Seniki. But again, this author made a beautiful, beautiful point when linking up these Senikis to the tribe of Asher by way of their language, which is now said to be extinct. And again, Eldad the Danite is said to have traveled with a Jew of the desert from the tribe of Asher, who's said to be a Mandi or Seniki, who in turn traced their origins to the chiefs of the tribes of Israel. Let's continue on, going back to Black Jews of Africa. It is therefore not surprising that a century later, there are presented as profession a religion that was a mixture of all sorts of things, and that as they were not considered as Muslim by the Arabs, and as not wanting to be called heathens, as to avoid the fate reserved by Islam for idolaters. These Senikis simply declared themselves as Jews. That's what they called themselves, all right? These Senikis simply declared themselves as Jews, thus the people of the book. And as such, were only subject to special tax, the Hajraj, whereas had they been called heathens, they would have sooner or later have been condemned to slavery. One remark is nonetheless necessary regarding Muni's reflections. To call themselves Jews suggests that the Seniki must have had some knowledge of Jews in the south of the Sahara. The Tariq al-Fatash also mentions the existence of a colony of the Banai Israel living in Terminda in the southeast of Timbuktu, in the place where the city of Termina was founded in 1496. An Israelite population had formerly lived, whose wells and tombs still remain. All right, remember when we was reading about the Bafor, they were associated with the Bani Israel, who were well builders as well. And one thing we need to point out as well, because a lot of people like to say there's no evidence or material culture of Jews being in West Africa. But right here we have wells and Jewish tombs in Timbuktu to this day. All right. We have Jewish wells and Jewish tombs in West Africa to this day. These Jews who inhabited this place until the 15th century lived on agriculture and had dug wells because they grew vegetables, which they sold for which merchants paid them considerable amounts of money. So even here, these Sonikis are connected to the Bani Israel, just like their ancestors, the Bafor. So let's go into that. Let's go into the Banai Israel connection to the Seniki. Judaic threads in West African tapestry, no more forever. The continuing presence of the Banai Israel in sub-Saharan Africa was subsequently documented by more recent observers on the scene. In 1940, a mission to the Bandu region in Upper Guinea recorded information on the Janaka or Janakank network of early Islamicized Seniki-speaking cloth trading communities who claimed descent from the Banai Israel. So you even had Seniki who were Islamicized, who still claim to be descendants from this community of Banai Israel. All right. According to the local informants, they speak a language which few of us have begun to comprehend. They marry amongst themselves. They do not mix with other populations. They are Muslims, but practice the religion in a very rudimentary fashion. The populations of the Banoon have never ceased to call them Bani Israel. All right. So even the populations call them Bani Israel. Among the written histories found there, one began in Hebrew, then continued in Arabic in another. Certain parts were in Abrani, a script very widespread among the Janaka. All right. And this is a Seniki people. Abrani, as close cognate of Ibraniya, recalls the illustrated secret script mentioned above. So again, even these Bani or even these Seniki have a connection to the Bani Israel communities of the Sahel. All right, so let's continue. It's getting deep, family. It's getting deep. In Senegalese bush, Bani Israel tribe claims Jewish heritage. Proud Muslims. The villagers must change their name and their birthplace to enter Mecca, but still do not deny Jewish ancestry. So again, they are Muslims, but they don't deny their Jewish ancestry. And we know who they were converted to Islam by. So, Bani Israel, Senegal, here we welcome you into his earthen floor home, introduce you to his 3 wives, and let you sample their cooking. But Duga Tuigo, Fado, does not want foreigners to come near the sacred tree of his village deep in the Senegalese bush. So give me 1 second. It says, the tree is holy ground, says Fido, president of the remote settlement of 4,000 souls. Our Jewish ancestors, Jacob, planted it here when his peoples first settled here 1,000 years ago. The lush capote tree towers over the parched silvery at the edge of Banai Israel, a dusty community in eastern Senegal, near the border of Mali. The residents, all Muslims, are members of a tribe whose name means sons of Israel. And they trace their lineage to 2 clans, Sela and Drame. They say they are descendants from Egyptian Jews. Again, who are the Sela and Drame? The Sela and Drame are descendants of the Seniki. They're nothing but a Seniki tribe. And another thing right here where it says, this is getting very interesting, because again, in Jeremiah 44, it's specifically mentioned that you had Jews in Elephantime. It's not mentioned as Elephantimes. I believe it's Taphanese. It's either Taphanese or Nof that's specifically outlining this specific community where their ancestors were. And Jeremiah gave warning to these people, letting them know, y'all not coming back to the land of Israel. All right, because y'all didn't want to listen to me. Well, let's continue. It says, we are all practicing Muslims. Excuse me, let me get my pointing back. We are all practicing Muslims, and we do not want to become Jewish. All right, listen to what he said. We are all practicing Muslims, but we do not want to become Jewish, Fadigo says. In fact, we do not like to talk too much about our Jewish background, but we do not hide it either. We know our people came from Egypt to Somalia and from there to Nigeria, where they split about 1,000 years ago. One branch of the two families went to Mali, another to Guinea, and we settled here. All right. It goes on to say that West Africa, well, let me start from here. It says, Bihar believes the historic presence is responsible for some of the faint Jewish traces still visible in the region. West African musicians often decorate the traditional 21-string bridge harp known as the kora with Jewish symbols, including the Star of David. All right, so you can also find this, and they're also known as griots. All right, so if you was just to look up griot musicians or West African bards, you can see the type of music they play, and these are all Bafor, Suniki, Mandi people. All right, and it is said that they have, Jewish inscriptions and symbols on their instruments, basically. Now, going down here to the next highlighted, it says, I believe there is an element of truth to the tradition of the Banai Israel, especially since they have nothing to gain from pretending, says Bahar, who returned from Senegal in 2011. They're not seeking Israeli citizenship, nor are they claiming to be Jewish. In fact, their Jewish ancestry and name can only give them problems. And to wrap it up, it says some accounts do, however, support the last leg of the journey that Fadiga describes. The Banai Israel are speakers of the Janakai dialect, the language of the Diakhanic tribe, which the International Journal of African Historical Studies says migrated down the Niger River, settled in Mali, Guinea, Gambia, and Senegal. All right, and we just read about these people specifically have a connection to the Banai Israel, and we also know that they are nothing but Suniki. So let's continue to expound upon this information. And to do that, we need to figure out who are the Bani Israel. What is the history behind these people? Who are they? Where specifically in West Africa? Where are they? And can we, identify who these people were? I think I did a good job at doing that thus far, but let's continue to figure out who they were specifically. So the term Banai Israel or Banai Israel, frequently mentioned in the Quran and used by Muslim scholars as a polite designation for their Jewish colleagues in lieu of the more derogatory Yahudi, occurs frequently in an oft-cited 17th century Muslim Tariq historical account of West African history. In the course of Banai Israel occupancy, 7 princes, descendants of the king of the Jews, ruled the city, each with major military forces, and they were reputed to be remarkable masons and well builders, and their tombs and wells were still evident. All right, and again, we just saw this tradition amongst the Suniki and Bafor being well builders, being masons, and also being having these same tombs as well in these areas. Hebrewisms of West Africa. It lets us know something as well about the Banai Israel. It says, lately on the banks of the Niger, M. Donald D. Marizes discovered the remains of a colony of Banai Israel, who had sunk hundreds of wells for irrigation of their gardens. These wells were preserved just as several centuries before the Negro chronicler of Gal describes them, with their walls constructed with ferreted stones and coated over with the butter of aloes, which the action of very hot fire had rendered as durable as cast iron. All right, so they had real stable, real fertile wells that they used for gardening, that they used for water, and that they used as a tradition of their people. It goes on to say, if Ghana was the capital for Jews, its ruin someday will yield up the secret. That is to say, the interesting that the excavations of a city dead from 7 centuries will present. All right, so Ghana actually has to go under some more excavations, but so far they have found Jewish tombs, they have found these wells, and they have found, I guess you could say, grounds of masonry, of Jewish masonry on these specific locations. And even further up in the Sahel and like Morocco and stuff like that, they found old ancient Jewish synagogues. But I'll bring some of that out in the near future. But again, the thing to point out here is that this author made reference to the Bani Israel or the Bani Israel or Ghana being the capital of this Bani Israel community. And again, we've connected Ghana and the Bani Israel so far to these Bafor Seniki people. So it's definitely getting deep. But let's get a little bit deeper into the Banai Israel, which is what they actually known as in West Africa, the Banai Israel. And we're going to go to tracing manuscripts in time and space through paratext. All right, right here. It says the fact that a place name in a colophon may correspond to several possible locations on a map can also be observed in other OM manuscripts. This is the case for another manuscript from BULAC with the shelf mark MSARA 112B. For instance, the colophon is written separately from the main text of the folio at the end of the manuscript and states that the writing was finished by the scribe and the owner, Al-Hajj Drami, all right, living in Bani Israel. Now, before I go on, let me see something real quick, because I think we can make a quick connection. Let me see, where was that name? Right, right here. So even right here, I did not notice this at first, but right here, these Bani Israel. Let me highlight this right here. These Bani Israel have clans known as the Drami. So remember that. These Bani Israel have a clan known as the Drami, and even up here on the source that we're reading from, he has the surname Drami. And where is he living? In Bani Israel. So if anybody want to take the trip to Bani Israel, I got you. You know what I'm saying? I could book us a flight. We can catch a trip out to Bani Israel, Senegal, Timbuktu, anytime y'all want to go. All right. So you can definitely find Bani Israel in West Africa, Senegal, and that's not the only place you can find this location. But again, you can pull up the Bani Israel if you want to. Various sources suggest that Bani Israel is a major scholarly center for the Janakay or the Seniki clergics located at the Bandu region of eastern Senegal. Another place with the same name situated in the modern Kamasis Siuo region in the southern Senegal is reported in the third part of the Pakal book. In addition, there is also a place named Bani Israel in Karata and Gambia. All right, so you can also find a Bani Israel in Gambia, which could also, bring credence to the diaspora of these people, migrating throughout further places in West Africa after the fall of the Kingdom of Ghana. Now, right here, down here in the highlighted, it says Tal Tamara, pointing out that this tradition of Israelite origins is shared by numerous groups, especially those with a Fulube and Seniki background. All right, so I didn't speak on the Fulani today, but I will bring out some history on the Fulani, possibly here in the future. But what we need to take mention or reference from this specific source is that these Israelites or these people who claim Israelite origin claim to be specifically of Seniki background, in particularly of Banai Israel. And again, the Seniki themselves claim to be Banai Israel as well. So we keep seeing all these sources overlap and line up. It says, I am also grateful to Tal Tamira for referencing me to Delafasi and Bello, who mentioned this genealogy tradition in West Africa. So we went over the Bafor, the ancestor of the Mandi Seniki people. We went over the Seniki, who are a Mandi people. Now, what about the Dan? All right. The Seniki or the Mandi people also have a people or a tribe known as the Dan-Yakuba, and we're going to go over them today. And before I do that, I'm going to play a quick video in reference to these Dan-Yakuba, and then we're going to go into some history about them. So please pay attention to the video. You're going to have to read the words on the screen because it is in French. So 1 second and we will watch this video. One right quick.
Et auprès du rabbin Mavrato, un juge rabbinique éthiopien, étant la référence sur le judaïsme d'Éthiopie, d'où les Danites prétendent venir. Mais au fait, que disent-ils sur leur origine?
Par rapport à l'origine des temps, il y a des temps dont on dit qu'ils sont descendus du ciel par une chaîne. Ça, il y a des catégories, il y a des villages comme ça chez les temps. C'est-à-dire qu'en réalité, l'origine du temps au village, on ne le connaît pas. On ne la connaît pas normalement. On dit qu'on est venu de l'Est.
Ou bien du Nord.
C'est-à-dire du Nord, quoi. En descendant.
Est-ce qu'en tant que Dan, il vous est déjà arrivé de parler entre vous d'Israël et d'un rapport que vous avez avec Israël?
Nos parents disent que nous sommes venus du nord du pays de Dieu. Et c'est plus tard. C'est plus tard qu'on a appris que l'Israël a été le pays que Dieu a visité.
D'abord, nos patriarches, certains patriarches qui étaient là, qui sont des patriarches, qui ne sont pas forcément intellectuels, mais qui sont quand même cultivés sur le plan culturel, ils reconnaissaient que nous venions de l'Orient. Ça, dès l'enfance, on reconnaît cela. Mais ils ne savaient pas effectivement si on était de source hébraïque ou non.
So that's just a little breakdown, an oral tradition of those peoples, these Mandi Dan people, coming from the Middle East into their present day abode. And one thing I want you all to realize, I'm not just giving you the history of all these different tribes that have nothing to do with each other. All the tribes I've brought out are from one group known as the Mandi. All right, so let's dig into the Dan-Yakuba. The Dan, also known as Yakuba, Mibi, Samia, and Gil, are a Manding-speaking people or group of people who today are consecrated in the Ivory Coast, especially in the departments of Man, Diane, and Biakamuma. There are also smaller clusters of Dan people across the border in Liberia, primarily in Namibia County near the town of Tapia or Tapta. Sorry for butchering all these words, family. But it gets interesting here because it says, although many Dan reside over the overtures, although many Dan resisted the overtures of Islamic missionaries from the Mali Empire in the 15th and 16th century, a substantial number eventually became Muslims, just like the rest of their family, right? The Dan are primarily sedimentary farmers who raise high altitude rice, cola nuts, peanuts, cotton, millet, rice, goats, chickens, and various forms of fruit. All right. So that's just a little background on these Mandi Dan people. So let's look at some Israelite history. And this is coming from the Phasmid and the Twig. So in the 8th century BC, the kingdom of Israel was destroyed by the Assyrians between 740 and 720. Almost the entire Jewish population was expelled and replaced by the Assyrian colonists. The 10 tribes that made up the northern kingdom then disappeared from history forever. They reappeared in legends here and there among the Khazars in America and in Africa. The African hypothesis has survived until today. A few years ago, a patient of mine from the Ivory Coast, a speaker of Dan, told me that he descended from the Israelite tribe of Dan. He goes on to say his were more than mere words. He wore a skull cap. All right. We see the Dan with the skull caps. And he let his fringes of his prayer shawl hang down from his jacket and injected into every second sentence an emphatic Baruch Hashem to convince me that he was what he claimed. So these people do claim to be descendants of Dan. Like I showed you the video of the elders speaking, and even here we have them claiming to be Danites from the tribe of Dan. Not only that, we have the tradition of Eldad the Danite telling us his people, his family, his tribe came into Western Africa. And one thing I want you all to notice is the traditional wear of the Danites. They seem to have preserved that ancient Israelite look, if you ask me. Even here, even this attire here, it just looks very, very ancient Israelitish to me. Even if you was to watch that full video of what I showed you all, you even had the Ashkenazi man saying, "Where did you all get this attire from? It looks so similar to what we wear." So again, I actually believe this to be very, very similar to the ancient Israelite attire that these Dan were able to preserve. Jews in places you never thought of. A related story about surviving memories of Jewish roots in West Africa was told to me around 1976 by Shimon Peres, the former Israeli prime minister. He had just returned from a meeting of the Socialist International, during which he had met with the president Leopold Senghor of Senegal. In the course of their discussion about the possibility of normalizing Senegalese-Israeli relations, Senghor told Peres that he too had Jewish ancestors. When Perez recounted the incident, we both smiled somewhat incredulously. Yet, indeed, there are a number of historical records of a small Jewish kingdom and tribal groups known as the Bani Israel that were part of the Wolof and Manding communities. These existed in Senegal from the early Middle Ages up into the 18th century when they were forced to convert to Islam. Some of these clans claim to be descendants of who? The tribe of Dan. That's why we see the people known as the Dan today. These are these same people. The traditional tribe of Jewish gold and metal artisans who are said to have built the golden calf. Not only do we see these same people being associated with gold, metal artisanship, we also see these people being associated with the tribe of Dan. So we dealt with the Bafor. We've dealt with the Mandi. We dealt with the Dan. And it's one more people. It's one more tribe that we can deal with to show Israelite traditions or Israelite heritage amongst the overall Mandi ethnic group. And we can do that by going into the Bambara. The Bambara, who are called themselves the Bani, are a large ethnic group who speak a Manding language. Their population today exceeds 3 million people and are largely located throughout Mali as well as in northern areas of the Ivory Coast. They can also be found in Guinea-Bissau. They are the largest ethnic group in Mali, and their language is the lingua franca in the country. Several hundred thousands of Bambara are scattered throughout Guinea, Senegal, and Gambia. They are especially concentrated on the Niger River from its interior down to Bamako and on the Bani River in the east to the Karta in the west. All right, so remember that word Karta because we brought some information out on that last video. It says because of the particular soil composition in the savannas where the rural Bambara farm with heavy clay content, they develop uniquely cooperative agriculture system in which the whole communities jointly plow, plant, weed, and harvest crops. So we also see that these tribes have similar traditions as far as it comes to agriculture and things of that sort. So during the 18th century, there were 2 Bambara kingdoms in West Africa, the kingdom of Segu and the kingdom of Karta. A century later, however, in the middle 19th century, a series of militant Muslim revivals overthrew the Bambara kingdom. So when we see all these kingdoms, specifically all these Manding kingdoms, came to an end because of the Muslims, all right, because of the Berbers, because of the Sanhaja, the Amavars, whatever you want to call them, right? So let's get into the Jewish traditions of this Bambara kingdom, like we just read over. And to do that, we're going to go to the Jewish Herald. It states specifically right here, a Jew who had accompanied a German traveler as far as Timbuktu, found near the boundary of the kingdom of Bambara, a large number of Jewish Negroes. Nearly every family among them possessed the law of Moses written upon parchment. Although they speak of the prophets, they have not their writings. Excuse me, 1 second. All right, they have not their writings. Their prayers differ from those of the other Jews and are committed to little leaves of parchment, stitched together and containing numerous passages derived from the Psalms. These Jews have mingled some of the superstitions of oral law with those of their neighbors, the Mohammedans and the heathens. They enjoy equal liberty with the other subjects of the African chiefs in their synagogues and their rabbis. The explanation to which they give themselves in their connection with their black skin is that after the destruction of Jerusalem, at the time of the first captivity, some of their ancestors, having neither goods nor land, fled to the desert. We all know the first captivity of Israel was indeed the Assyrian exile or the Assyrian captivity. So again, this is kind of this tradition amongst the Bambara is again lining up to the other traditions that we've brought out of these people coming in at a certain time, leaving Egypt at a certain time, and coming into the Western Sahel of the desert at a certain time. So again, everything's lining up. And to finish off, it says access to these, or let me read from here actually. It says these are highly interesting facts and create a strong desire that these unexplored regions may be speedily open to intercourse with the civilized world. Access to these ancient manuscripts, which are probably older than any other now extant, would be a great value in correcting the received Hebrew text or in throwing light upon the doubtful passages. So not only does this Jewish Herald, right? This is a Jewish book. So not only do these authors of this book let us know that, hey, it was a Jewish kingdom. It was a colony of Jewish Negroes in this Bambara territory. We know the Bambara territory was inhabited by the Bambara, so this would have been a Bambara that they was talking about. It also lets us know that these Jews in the Sahara could have old ancient Hebrew manuscripts that could actually correct some things we see in the scripture today, which is very, very interesting. Just to throw that out there. And again, this is coming from the Jewish Herald. All right. And we're going to go back to the Archives Mauritanians and read a little bit about what Eldad told us, because again, he told us the areas that these Jews settled. And I just want to show that Karta was one of these Jews, or was one of these locations that these Jews had settled, in turn connecting them to the Bambara. And again, this is coming page 71. It says we will devote a separate study to it. Among the geographical names given by Eldad and often manipulated by the copyists, we thought we could identify a certain number, which here are a few. We already know about Adrar, Todima or Todimaka, Kukia, Countu or Kumtu, Tekort or Tekort. We have Tukalur, Tukuba or Kechi, or Karma or Kartas, all right? And again, this will be encompassing the Bambara kingdom as we read right here. All right. And again, this is letting us know this is location that Eldad outlined the geographical regions where Jews settled, and Karta, the Bambara location or the Bambara kingdom, is one of them. All right. And again, here is Karta in the Timbuktu region. So let's deal with the conclusion. Let's get into the conclusion of the matter. And to do that, we're going to go back to Archives Mauritanians and we're going to read the conclusion. So the invasion of the Arabs in the 7th century threw into the Adrar and the Khazars of the desert entire tribes of the Jewish religion, which joined to the tribes originated in Arabia, succeeded in founding at the beginning of the 9th century the first empire of the Sahara and the Sudan, which coincides with the chronological data of the Arab authors quoted. We know the first kingdom to come up in the Sahara was the kingdom of Ghana. All right. It was actually by the Jews of Adrar. All right. The Seniki, who came from Adrar from the Bafor. All right. So again, it says, however, around 837, Tutan, the son of Takran, and probably the father of the Jewish prince Aduj, converted to Islam, which ushered in an era of wars between Jews and Muslims in West Africa. These wars, our Danite knows how to tell them, and only a study made on them spot could elucidate them definitely. It emerges, in any case, from what we have managed to extract from his remarks, that the Jews around 850 to 860 still had firmly that they occupied a territory of 200 days' march, which does not seem excessively, as we consider that these tribes were nomad and that their influence was exerted from Kukia to the ocean. All right. We know this territory specifically was the kingdom of Ghana. From Kukia right here, we pull out my pen, Kukia to the ocean. All right. We see Kukia, and actually here's Wagadu. All right. And actually here's Kumba Sahel, the capital of Wagadu. So Ghana actually was pretty huge, right? And people don't realize that. The capital of the Ghana Empire was in Mauritania. All right. The capital of Ghana was in Mauritania, Kumbi Sahel. So what was the conclusion of this? In the 7th century, the Arabs came down into the Adrar region and pushed these Jews into the desert, which led to the foundation of the first empire of the Sahara in the 9th century, which in turn was the Kingdom of Ghana. Negro Land Revisited. It says, Eldad's story became popular, especially after Lakem Karmi, a well-known and prolific editor of Hebraic texts, published a French translation in 1843, which made the text available to non-Hebraic readers. Jewish scholars had been arguing about Eldad for centuries, although they were much or less interested in his African adventures than the laws of legal practices of his alleged background. Nevertheless, there was for a long time no reason to expect Eldad's claim that there were once a Jewish kingdom somewhere in the African interior. As we have already discussed above, his claim was supported by various nearly contemporary Arabic sources. Also, there were several European sources for the existence of Jews or Judaized blacks in West Africa. As discussed above, Louis del Maramo Karaja claimed that some West African blacks had been Jews before their conversion to Islam. All right, and that was, I guess you can say, that one of the themes of this video, showing you the history of these Jews in West Africa, who in turn was a part of these community known as the Bani Israel. And this was before they was converted. All right. So the summary of this specific page right here is that West African blacks have been Jews before their conversions to Islam. All right. Specifically the people known as the Mende. And to wrap it all the way up, I believe these peoples to be descendants of the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Dan, and the tribe of Asher. All right, Maurice Delafossi put it pretty good. Like I said, a Judeo-Syrian, ancestry from the Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom. I believe these people to be Yehuds or Judah, descendants of Judah, specifically because in Mauritania, they were known as Yehuds, right? It was Mauritanian legend that they were known as Yehuds. Not only that, you find these Judean date palm trees in these locations that these people were, all right? These specific palm trees, they weren't in Lebanon, they weren't in Northern Kingdom Israelite territory, but they were specifically in Judean territory, and they wound it up in, Bafor, West Africa, which was why I proposed that you have descendants of Judah amongst them. I also say they have descendants of Dan. Why do you say descendants of Dan, Will? Because we read about the tradition of Beta being brought into the kingdom of Ghana, the guardian snake. We know that is a tradition amongst the northern tribe of Dan, and with them being associated with the snake, and even snakes and serpentine figures being found in their homeland and Eldad in archaeological sites. We also have a people known as the Dan-Yakuba, or the tribe of Dan amongst these people, which leads more credence to they are descendants of the tribe of Dan. And I firmly believe this as well because the traditions and the story of Eldad the Danite, especially with him traveling with a Seneki or Mandi person, that just lays credence even more that the Danites did make their way into West Africa, especially the fact that they were said to be a part of the Bani Israel community as well. And even here to the right, I say that they have descendants of the tribe of Asher as well, because again, they do have people in Morocco, they do have people in Mauritania that do still speak this Asher or Azer language. Eldad the Danite was said to be traveling with a Seneki Jew who was of the tribe of Asher. So again, everything we went over, connecting these people to the Bani Israel from the different traditions, the different legends, and the different history and events that got them into or got them converted into Islam and to this day, just shows me overall that this legend came together and concluded me with these final thoughts on who I believe these tribes come from. All right. So with that, oh no, that's all it. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Hope you all enjoyed this. I'm going to come back to the comment section and see what's going on. All right. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Exit this out. Come back to the comment section and see what's going on. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen. Got 23 people viewing in. All right. All right. I will throw the link in here in a second for anyone who wants to come up and join. For anyone who has anything to say, or whoever has anything to go against what was brought out. So let me move up in the comment section. Let me go ahead and throw this link in here. Move up in the comment section. Read out some of these comments. If there's any questions or comments that you have, please drop them. The link is in the chat now. If anybody that wants to come up. All right. Let's see what's going on. It's a lot of comments. Where should I start? Okay, the brother brought out Zephaniah. All right, indeed, beyond the rivers. We did indeed move beyond the river. Yes, it was definitely a lot of truth being brought out. I wish I would have added Jeremiah 44 in, because that would have been a great connection as well. I wish I would have added Jeremiah 44 in. The brother says this is PhD research. You are about to get your master's degree and PhD with this academic research. Thank you, brother. I greatly appreciate it. Man. I try my best to come with the best information possible to build my claim. Once I get my speech and my talking down all the way, it's gonna be real good. Right. So I believe this is actually it. Taphanese is what I was speaking about. That's mentioned in Jeremiah 44, about where those Jews were at, that Jeremiah was telling, like, you all better make y'all way back to Judah, or the Lord is gonna, send hell against y'all. Jeremiah 44:1. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the Jews which dwelled in the land of Egypt, which dwell at Migdol and Taphanese and Noph and in the country of Patros. Again, Taphanese is Aswan, Elephatine, Egypt. Again, Jeremiah was circa 500-600 BCE. So again, he would have been talking to these Jews that was in Aswan, like, y'all better get out of there, because the Most High is about to send people to destroy this kingdom. And we see that actually fulfilled with the coming of the Persians, with the coming of the Assyrians and all that into Egypt. So, yeah. Let me see what else is going on in the chat. And the Lord shall scatter them or thee among all the people from one end of the earth, even to the other. There shall he serve other gods, which thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Indeed. The sister says the former Ghana Empire is different. Oh yeah, that's correct. Ghana Empire was further north. Facts. The Ghana Empire stretched from Mauritania to Niger. Right. Okay. right? And that scripture is coming from Deuteronomy 28:64. All the Israelites know Deuteronomy 28. We definitely know Deuteronomy 28. That's one of the first chapters that we got into deep, got hooked to once we came into this truth. So yeah, we're definitely familiar with Deuteronomy 28. The brother says, all this migration from the east needs to be explored more. Did it have anything to do with Mohammedans Moors forcing them away from Israel across Africa? Yes, specifically, it depends on the time. It depends on the timeline. This timeline we was looking at, they was more than likely coming into Africa from the Assyrian exile, refugeeing themselves in Tafanese or in Aswan, because again, Aswan, Egypt was a Jewish colony, a Jewish refuge. So they would have made their way into there. And it seems like when Darius the Persian king started to tax the Jews in that area is when they left for the Sahel. If that makes sense. All right. So the brother says, check this out. Remember the movie Roots? Kunta Kinte came from this region and they said they were Muslims. So in fact, Alex Haley was ancestral is in Israel. So yes. Kunta Kinte, all of his people by time slavery came were Muslims, right? Because Kunta Kinte was Mandinka. So he would descend from this same population of people that I've been talking about. But if we was to go back 200 years before that, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years, they definitely would not have been, Muslims. Again, before the coming of Islam, many West African blacks were Jews. All right. The Jews were in West Africa before the Muslims, which is an important fact we need to remember as well. Todah, my brother Todah, saving that to his playlist. Well needed. So climate change reveals a lot of stuff. Perhaps the Sahara Desert will reveal many artifacts. Yeah, it will. It will. Like I said, I will do a separate video on it, but there are Jewish synagogues in the Sahara that they've unearthed. There are floral murals of Jewish, I guess you could say Jewish artwork, or I guess you could say like frescoes. That's the word I'm looking for. So if you was to go into Israel, you can see like remnants of frescoes from the Roman period, like ground paintings, or like ground, I guess you can say masonries. You can see that same type of artwork in West Africa in these different ruins, and it's associated with these Bani Israel. All right, so it's going to continue to get deep over the time. 1884 Berlin Conference, aka Scramble for Africa, erased the previous landmarkers. Old maps and old traditions must be incorporated to okay. Yeah, I believe I did a good job at doing that. If I didn't, let me know. Zombie serpent god of Congo. Perhaps there's a link between Senegal and the Congolese tribe. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Again, I'm gonna put the link in the chat one more time. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to ask them. Questions, comments, please feel free to ask them. Anyone want to come up, chat, talk, add, take away, critique, links in the chat. I'm open to anything right about now. The brother says, well done. This isn't a false camp doctrine that lacks history and oral sources that are passed down to this very day. And that's what I'm saying. And I could have brought out some more information that would have had you all on the edges of you all's seats, but I'm gonna do that separately. Like he said, we showed it through the oral traditions, and we even showed it through surnames. All right, we showed it through the connection of tribes. We started off with the head honcho. Right, we started off with the head tribe, with the head people who are known to be the Bafor. Then we made our way down to the descendant groups, like the Seniki, then other people like the Dan, the Bambara. All right. So indeed, brother. But speaking of what I was just talking about, I will be uploading a video It's going to be pre-recorded on the Dagatun connection to these people that we just brought out. So there is a Dagatun Jewish connection to these Mandinka people as well. So be looking out for that. Be looking out for that. Keep in mind, Eldad the Danite in Babylon and Timbuktu, he did say that the Hebrew that he saw Naphtali and Asher in the Bible. Yes. I brought out last video the traditions of Eldad the Danite and how those specific tribes made their way into West Africa. Do you believe in the real? Specifically, what do you mean, brother, sister, or sister? Do you mind expounding on this question or statement? Just like Alex Haley, we need to trace our family roots back to Israelite tribes within Africa. Agreed. So I wonder what you're talking about there. I may need to go up and read something. Yeah, I don't see anything about what he's talking about. But I'm going to stay around for a couple more minutes. You all can find me on the Brother Lion Farm channel around 3 o'clock. We'll be doing a joint live as well around 3 o'clock, going into some information, genetics. So if you want to tune into that, you can watch that. But yeah, man, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Again, I have the link in the comment section for questions, comments. Again, I'm sticking around right now for you all. If you do have any questions, comments, please put them in the chat for me, and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. I just checked the chief of Beta in Nigeria. His name is Yahya Abukar. Do you know what specific people this is associated with this Beta group, sister? Can you find it out for me? Because I like to look into that. If you can find that for me. I was thinking the same thing. That was fire. May the fire of the truth be known, because like I want to focus on standing by the fossil evidence. They getting nervous. And yeah, they're going to continue to get nervous with this information I'm bringing out, because it's not all of it. Like I say, I could have brought out another major connection, which I want to save. Okay. Toda, thank you very much. Thank you very much for tuning in. It depends on what specific Libyans we're talking about. It's a lot of different Libyans or people in Libya. So from surface value, I would say no. To be a Hebrew, you have to descend specifically from Eber. So unless you're like an Israelite, Edomite, Joktanite, Edomite, Amorite, something like that, then but like I say, it depends on what people you're talking about, because there's a lot of people up there. So again, I'm gonna stick around for about 1-2 more minutes. If anything not coming in, I'm gonna end it. And I might chop this video up and repost them from their separate sections. Like I might chop the Bafor video up and post that. I might chop the Saniki video up and post that, etc. For you all, so it's not just in this long live. All right. So while I'm waiting on you all to propose your final questions, I will show you all a few things that you can do for me if you would like. So let me see real quick. Let me see if I can get it up. See if I can get this up. Let's see. All right, so if anyone is on or active on Facebook during any times, feel free to join this group here. Feel free to join this group here, Zephaniah Alliance. We have a group chat here on Facebook. It's doing pretty good. We got a good amount of members thus far. We're at 44 members. So again, if you feel free, or if you would like to join this chat or this page, feel free just to share information and congregate with the family. Got people like the Hebrew of Israel in here. Myself, of course. We got the brother Neriyahu, the brother Shaha, or Saya Harris as well. Of course, we got the brother Neriyahu. So if you're interested in joining this, it's called Zephaniah Alliance on Facebook, and here is the link. Also, I put it up earlier, but if you're interested in joining, let me share my screen for this as well. I have another group that we can join. And actually, I just beat up on somebody in a debate, man. I don't think anybody want to debate me. I don't think anybody's ready to debate me. Let me share my screen real quick so I can show you all this group. Speaking of that debate, I might post a debate here on YouTube. I did record it, so I might post some of it. I did win, of course, by a landslide. But if you're interested in joining my Discord group, we have a Discord right here called Abenya. Different groups, of course. We got the debate chat going on over here. A lot of people in here that we just talked to and stuff like that to connect with. So I will throw the link to this in the chat as well if you're interested in joining Discord. Again, this is just to keep in contact with me when I'm not live or on YouTube. All right. So I definitely did get into a debate a couple of days, I believe it was a few days ago, over the origins of haplogroup DE. Do you believe the real Israel is in more Ethiopia to the Congo? No. Stop listening to Teo. Please stop listening to Teo Ministries. Study for yourself. Don't even listen to me. If I show you something, go back and research it. Go back and study it. The land of Israel is not in Africa. It's no way possible. All right. Matter of fact, man, I'm going to share my screen. I want you to do this. All right. I've already shared this on Facebook. I've even shared this to Teo. I don't know if you're watching Teo, so I'm going to just I don't even know if you watch Teo, but I believe that's who you're getting that from based off the things you said. But no, the land of Israel is not in Ethiopia. And I would debate anyone on that as well. What you need to do is go watch this video. Where is the land of Israel? And I will show you where the land of Israel. I will show you where the land of Israel is in this video. It's not in sub-Saharan Africa, nor is there any evidence to support a sub-Saharan African land of Israel. So there's the link for it. So yeah, I guess you could say, yeah, Palestine is the true land of Israel, where the white people live today. I know that's what y'all like to say. It can't be the land of Israel because there's white people there, which is racist. But yeah, Morgan Freeman, he like E1B1B, ain't he? Correct me if I'm wrong. But I didn't know he traced this ancestry back to the Songhai people. The Songhai people are interesting. I will say that because just taking a look at their genetics, they're interesting. They said it was originally a settlement of the Banai or the Bani people. Ever heard of the Benin Kingdom? So yes, I have. So thank you for that. I will look into that. That's an interesting connection. So I have heard of the Bani people and the Benin Kingdom. So I will look at this type of beta cult worship amongst them. Brother says I'd go live with Will now. If the boys were sleeping, 2 more hours, gonna have a new level of fire. Join Will's sources, share facts. All right, family. So again, one last time. I'm gonna throw the link out there one last time. It's 25 people in here. Throw the link out there one last time for anyone who wants to join. And I will leave the conversation open for a few more minutes for any comments or anything. If not, I'm gonna wrap it up and you can catch me on Line Farm later. Shalom, brother, in search of Yah. Shalom. And exactly, that's funny. Like, how's the land of Israel and Ethiopia when Zephaniah, said what he said? Ethiopia to the Congo is not the original land of Israel. It is the land of the dispersed of Israel. Facts, Zephaniah 3:10. Exactly. So thank you all for tuning in. Those who just now tuned in, start it over from the beginning. Rewatch it, soak up all the information, get an understanding of what's going on, and digest the information. I hope you all enjoyed it. We're going to continue to bring out this information over the African Israelite history in Africa, the African Israelite diaspora in Africa. Today we dealt with the people known as Bani Israel, who I was able to connect to Mandi peoples like the Bafor, the Senegal, the Bambara, and even the Dan. All right. Next video, Yah willing, we will be dealing with maybe a country like Nigeria, a country like Ghana, a country like Senegal, like that, looking at the different tribes in those countries and how those tribes or those tribes in that specific location have Israelite origins as well. So give me 1 second, looking at the chat. Todah, my brother, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Rico Brown asks, who are the modern North Africans, and also who would the Balkans be? Modern day North Africans are a mixture of people. Some of them descend from Berbers or Amazigh peoples or ancient Ibero-Mauritanians, and some of them are invaders from different locations like southern Spain, Portugal, even from the Roman empires, Greco-Roman empires, I guess you could say Greek and Roman empires as well. So you have a lot of different ancestries in North Africa. You have, I guess you can say Semitic ancestry, Hamitic ancestry, and even Japhetic ancestry, all in North Africa alone. And the Balkan Greeks would be, I'm not too scholarly or privy or up to date on the Balkan Greeks. If anybody else in here is, feel free to answer this question. But my suggestion or my guess would be that they would be descendants of Japhet. The brother says do a video on the Yakuba people. Maybe I can. I did a video back in the day dealing with the Mandi people as well. Where I brought out a lot of other information on the Yakuba people that I did today. So if you go watch an older video I did on the Mandi people, you will see me bringing out a French source on the Dan-Yakuba people, bringing out their traditions and culture, language, and all those things. And speaking on them, I will put that video in the chat that I played for you all real quick, so you all can go watch the video on the Dan as well if you would like. So give me 1 second and I'll put this in the chat. It's a real interesting video. But essentially the Yakuba people, they basically come from this same group that we've been reading over today, all right? All these people are in turn related and, split from the same population in Mauritania. So there's the link for it. So another quick question on the House of Tribes in northern Nigeria, are they Israel? I don't know really too much about the Hausa as far as genome wise. The only reason I brought this video out on the Banai Israel is because I know the genome of a lot of these peoples or a lot of these tribes, so I can, with the information I have, I could, say that they are Jews or Israelites or suspect that they are. But as far as it comes to the house, I don't really know their genome. Brother Lion Farm, if you still in the chat, do you know the genome of these of the Hausa groups? I'm not sure. Yeah, brother, if you know the genome of the Hausa groups, let us know real quick. Then I may be able to give you a more valid answer, Rico Brown, if that makes sense. So what about the Fon people? Yes, the Fon people are essentially a branch of the Ewe people. So the Fon and the Ewe are basically the same people. They come from Ketu, Yoruba land. So I guess you can say those people right there, the Fon and the Ewe branched off from the Yoruba. So they would have a connection to the Yoruba, and they do, the Fon do, and the Ewe do claim to be Israelites as well. But when it comes to information on the Fon, I do not have any. I believe I literally have zero as it comes to the Fon. But I do know that they are Ewe or Yoruba. I guess you could say they both. They have these connection ties or familiar ties to the Yoruba. The brother says they're gonna need they're gonna need soon snacks for what we're gonna bring out later on. E African RT RNTY DNA Africa by Foster. This is going to be an eye opener. Yes, indeed. So yes, if you all, again, like I said, I will be live with the brother in about an hour and 30 minutes. So you can just head over to Line Form channel if you want to catch me talking about genetics. So yeah, I think I didn't want to say it. I did want to, force myself or force my hand, but I did think that they were R1B. So I wouldn't think just because they're R1B doesn't mean that they aren't E1B1A as well or have E markers as well. So they could have mixed parental groups in their population. Oh, so they're mostly R1B and also AB, A and B. So yeah, they I would not consider them I would not consider them Israelites. I would not consider them genetic descendants of Israelites. How about that? I would not consider them genetic descendants of Jacob. That's what I would say. So yeah, they do have a lot of R1B. The brother says a few of them have E1B1A, so it is possible that they do have E1A or E1B1A. The brother in search of Yah says, what West African tribes have the highest E1B1B populations? It's actually a population. It's actually a population in Senegal who call themselves the Moors, who have EP2 and E1B1B. The Songhai have high frequencies of E1B1B as well. So the Songhai people, the people that gave rise to the Songhai Empire, they have E1B1B as well. I know off the coast of West Africa in like Cape Verde, you have E1B1B as well. So the tribes, I guess you can say the tribes that from what I observe and from what I see, the tribes that would have E1B1A, or excuse me, have higher frequency of E1B1B would be those Sahelian tribes. So the tribes in like Senegal, Timbuktu, Mali, Niger, Mauritania, Morocco, those tribes. So I know the Fulani will have E1B1B as well. Like I say, the Songhai, the Moors of Senegal. But those are just the ones I believe. Yeah, those are just the ones I know off the top of my head. But we know a lot of those Berber and Arabic tribes would have been bringing E1B1B down as well during their invasions. So, of course, the Tuaregs have E1B1B, and the Berber tribes in West Africa will have E1B1B as well. If that answers your question, brother. So yeah, the Ewe are 98% E1B1A, just like the Yoruba, which is interesting. So yeah, the Hausa carry V88 in high prevalence, similar to other Chadic-speaking groups, and it's actually a paper that speaks on, that haplogroup R coming in at a specific timeline, and it's even a paper. Oh, I gotta find that paper. Actually, now that kind of just sparked my mind. It's actually a paper talking about how those E groups, those E1B1B groups, or those E groups in West Africa spoke Afro-Asiatic languages before V88 came and assimilated. I gotta find that paper since you brought that up. So he says, I am fun and I carry EP252. Yep, that's basically the Yoruba marker, or what I call the Yoruba marker. A lot of Yoruba have that. That's E1B1A7. So yeah, he's EP252. That's very common amongst West African groups and even African Americans. Are you an African American, brother? If you don't mind me asking. So yes, R1 is that. Oh no, R1 is a European marker. It's just been in Africa for a while. It's just been in Africa for a while. Today is predominantly European, but it's been in Africa for a while. I guess you can call it Eurasian, if not directly European. But it's not from the same source as Semitic descendant people would be coming from. All right. What South African tribes have E1B1A? Bantus, basically Zulus. I don't really know who. Zulus, Shonas, Bakongos, the Heroes. Yeah, so it's a lot of Bantu tribes that have E1B1A. But again, their E1B1A isn't as prevalent or isn't as high as these West African groups. So yes, more came up. Oh, he said more came up for him as well. But what's interesting about the people I'm talking about who are in Senegal, their specific name is spelled Maur. All right, and they are in Senegal, and like I say, they're P2 and E3B, which is interesting. But I don't know if they're your specific E3B. I think I know who this is, so they might be. I think I know who this is. What specific in son of y'all is in search of y'all this is. So shalom, brother. E1B1B could be Ishmael as well as other descendants of Shem as well. Just depends on the model. According to me, or in my beliefs, yes, descendants of Ishmael would be E1B1B, but not just descendants of Ishmael. R1B-V88 migrated with us into sub-Saharan West Africa. I believe this haplogroup was among the Assyrians when they fled into sub-Saharan Africa, running from the Babylonians and the Medes. Speaking of that, it's actually a source talking about how you had not only Israelites that fled into sub-Saharan Africa, but you also had other Assyrian peoples who fled into sub-Saharan Africa as well, during that same Assyrian exile that you find those kingdoms coming into West Africa. So it's possible that not only Israelites, so Assyrian exiles made their way into sub-Saharan Africa fleeing the Assyrians, but also other groups that was in Assyria could have followed these Israelites into Africa, like the brother said. And like I said, I actually have source material, to back up what he just said. Facts. Me and the brother will be live in an hour. Shalom, brother Rue. Shalom, brother Rue. Thank you for tuning in. All right. The brother asked, have you looked into EL516 and its downstream mutations? No, I haven't. Do you have any specific information you'd like to share on that? But as of now, I have not looked into that specific clade or mutation. Is that E3B? I'm suggesting, or I'm assuming it's E3B. So the brother Ahaya says the Syrian army had Armenian soldiers among their ranks, and this is the region, I believe, the ancient R1B V88 originated from. That's interesting. That's interesting. I might want to look for this source right now since you brought that up. I may look for this source right quick since you brought that up because it goes with what you just said. Let me see if I can find it real quick. If I can't, I'm going to just forget it, but it goes with what you just said. Let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second, family, because it's very interesting. Yeah. And it's actually by the guy that did the Yoruba, who brought out the origins of the Yoruba information. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not finding it right now, so I may just forget about it. But I know it's by Derek Lane. It's not the Yoruba source, but it's the Assyrian successor state source, I believe, where he's talking about these other groups coming into sub-Saharan Africa besides Israelites. And this is a great point, and I never thought about it like that. So I may have to make a connection with that. He just made a great point. That's a great point. The haplogroup of Afro-Mexicans will be E, A, or B. All right. So the haplogroup of Afro-Mexicans, or even if you're actually talking about African descendants of these people in these locations, they will be A, B, or E. All right. So he says, the brother Haya, he says Kebi was the most famous Assyrian kingdom. Yep. See, yeah, I think we talking about the same exact information. I think you already know, brother. I think he already know. Yeah, he already know because he's talking about it right now. So he says, would all E1B1A in the subgroups be Israel then? Nope, it would not. Nope, it would not. From my understanding, from my research, it would not be. All E1B1As would not be subgroups of Israel, especially if we be honest with ourselves and take into account you had E1B1As around before Israel. So you have to analyze everything. So houses were known as Ashur/Ashur. Can't remember the spelling. You all are bringing some very, very good information in concerning this R1B house, a connection to the Assyrian refugees. This definitely will be some information I have to get into to expound on myself. So the brother Ruth says, no, it's Ithre. I have found it in West Africa and Arabia throughout history. That's very, very interesting because I use a tool, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Waful as well, because it shows you the different lineages that's like in Arabia as well as in West Africa. So it's real interesting about, finding out that connection between the two and seeing how, this group ended up in Arabia and this group ended up in West Africa. But I will look into that specific clade that you're talking about, EL516, to look at that connection and see if I can find any history on it. So I appreciate that. But I'm pretty sure you already know about Waful. The brother Ahaya B. Praise says the R1B V88 originated in the Southern Caucasus, exactly in the region of Armenia. You killing it. You killing it. Yeah, he killing it. He says, "No, you all good, brother. You all good." No, I think, like I say, I think we both know the same information. You just made a connection with the haplogroup that I never, took into account. I never took into account connecting the Kebi Chronicles with the Assyrian successor state to RV88. You know what I'm saying? Because, people use that Assyrian successor state to say that Assyria was originally in West Africa. So the Assyrian successor state being in West Africa is actually legit. To the fact that people try to say, use it as Assyria being in West Africa. Yeah, so I believe that's actually associated with that Kebi state. The brother says, what do you think about the oral traditions of the Haitians, saying that some of them are descendants of Judah and Levi? I don't believe that's an oral tradition. I believe that's coming from the camp brothers or the camp influences. But if they did say it, it is probable. It is a connection between Haitians and Israelite tribes in West Africa. But them saying they are descendants of Judah and Levi, I believe that would come from camp doctrine and influence. The brother Lion Farm states, according to YDNA by Hassani et al. 2008, about 47 of Hausa in Niger, Cameroon, Nigeria, and Sudan carry the West Eurasian haplogroup R1b. The remainder belong to various African paternal haplogroup lineages, 15.6% B, 12.5% A, and 12.5% E1B1A. All the minority, around 4%, are E1B1B clade bearers, a haplogroup which is most common in North Africa and the Horn of Africa. That's very, very interesting. And it's very interesting because we see that they even have a high prevalence of these Hamitic groups, or these Hamitic, I guess you could say Paleo-African haplogroups like A and B at 15 to 12%. We know E1B1B and even E1B1A would have been coming in later to this location. So doesn't our Fox ad sound like the country Chad in Africa? It could sound like it, but I wouldn't say that it's that location. I don't believe it's that location. The brother says, what subgroups would be Israel? So on the E1B1A side, as of now, I would definitely say more than likely a clade like E1B1A 7 could be an E1 Israelite group for sure. In my opinion, from what I see, from comparing it from the traditions, the history of these Jewish groups in West Africa, a lot of them carry this E1B1A 7. And even if you take a look at the history of African gene flow in Jews, Southern Europeans, and the Levant, they used the Yoruba DNA to show I guess you could say, the commonality between the Jewish groups 3,400 years ago. And if we know the haplogroup of the Yoruba, it is E1B1A 7, that EP252, like a lot of people was bringing up earlier. So if there is an Israelite group in E1B1A, I would say E1B1A 7. But again, that's just for now, off the top of my head. Who you speaking about specifically, brother? Yeah, I wouldn't consider E Paleo-African either. I would say it's Eurasian origin, and it back migrated into Africa. And that's what I was basically trying to tell that brother in the debate the other day, that you have a better job at saying E is African just because it back migrated. This brother was literally debating me, literally trying to debate me that haplogroup DE originated in East Africa. And of course, there's no evidence for that. There's no evidence for that. The brother Isaiah asks what haplogroup would Noah be. He would be, I guess you could say, the haplogroup that they call Adam. What the science world term calls Adam. Noah will have to be a haplogroup that gave rise to all three parahaplogroups that we see today, like AB, DE, and CF. If that makes sense, brother. So when the Sennacherib's sons killed him, they fled to Armenia for refuge, showing the Assyrians also ruled Armenia. Yo, this is getting deep. This is getting deep. And if you all aren't familiar with the Assyrian successor state, legend in West Africa, it's by Derek Lane. So you all can, it's pretty accessible for you all to look up. Okay. Understood. So the brother said, no, it's not. No, it's not oral tradition. There were some Haitian brothers bringing out the info. I'm called Haitian myself. Most Haitians descend right from the Ewe people and the Anglo subgroups. That's true. A lot of Haitians descend both from the Ewe and the Akan. So again, there could be indeed some truth to the Judah Levi thing. Just because if you take a look at the Ewe oral tradition and even the Akan oral tradition of who they say they come from, you do see Judah mentioned in that oral tradition. So yeah, you do see Judah mentioned in that oral tradition. So I will give you all about 1 more minute, and I see some more comments wrapping up. Would you consider Black Aborigines of Australia Israelites? No, I would not consider Black Aborigines of Australia Israelites. They have a whole different genome than West African groups and even North African groups, or even these. They have a whole completely different genome. Period. I believe they like haplogroup O, C, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. If anybody in the chat knows their genome, then correct me. But I know for a fact they're not D or E. Those Australian Aborigines. The brother line form states only E3A he found to be Israelites. All right. So the brother says he's Japhet since I'm I1A2A1A1A. So yes, we would consider you Japhet, brother. But again, there's nothing wrong with being a descendant of Japhet. There's nothing wrong with being a descendant of Ham, because again, we all have to fight for salvation to make our way to the kingdom of heaven, or eternal life rather. So again, lineages like C through F would be descendants of Japhet in my model. I've showed this over various videos, especially in the beginning of my, I guess you could say, my research. So let me go back up real quick. The brother goes on to say, all else are the mixed company if they join with Israel, as it said in the New Testament. Right. Agreed. I have I'm not gonna say my model right now because I've already did a video, showing it a little bit. So you also have an understanding of what I believe when it comes to the Israelite haplogroups. Who would modern day Canaanites and Moabites be? Modern day Canaanites would be Lebanese people. I might bring a paper up for you real quick. Moabites have the chance of being a Berber group in North Africa known as the Mozab or the Moabites, the Mozabites of North Africa. There is a tradition of Moabites fleeing into North Africa, and you do have a tradition or a people in North Africa known as the Mozabites. They do have a Afro-Asiatic genome, so it makes it even more highly plausible. And they do speak Afro-Asiatic languages. So yeah. Let me try to bring up this source real quick to answer the first questions for this brother, because it's very important to understand who the Canaanites are, especially by the time the biblical narrative would have begun, or the Exodus account would have begun. So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna just read over some of this for you. I do believe on the onset of things, and like I said, I also have a video showing who the Canaanites are. You just watched Japhetic invasion to the Levant, but I'm gonna read this paper for you real quick. On the onstart, the Canaanites would have been actual descendants of Ham, but invasions did take place into the Levant, like the Most High said, or like the scripture said. So you can look at this article right here. Levantines and Arabians have different origins. Middle Eastern genomic study finds the Arabians have deeper roots in Africa, while Levantine roots lie in Europe and Anatolia in today's Turkey. They differ in the amount of Neanderthal DNA. I believe this is the one talking about the Canaanites. If not, then I'm going to just refer you to my video. I don't believe this actually labels them as Canaanites in this specific article. I don't think it does. Yeah, it doesn't. It's calling them Levantines. Yeah, I'm gonna just read one part from here, maybe. 1 second. Sorry for the holdover. All right. Yeah, so it's not in here where it mentions that they are Canaanites, but the Canaanites would be modern day people in the Levant. A lot of modern day people in the Levant, like Lebanese people. We brought out the remains of the Canaanites. They were like haplogroup J and stuff, JP58 actually. So a lot of Lebanese people, a lot of Israelis, a lot of Palestinians actually descend from that Canaanite population. And again, I have a video called Japhetic Invasions to the Levant, which I recommend you watching to get a understanding about how they are Canaanites. A brother said Japheth and Ham were switched. What do you mean switched? Like territorially switched? Like break that down a little bit more for me, sister. The brother threw a version here, Romans 11:26, and so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, indeed, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. The brother says, appreciate the info, even if we defer in certain areas. Oh yeah, appreciate it, brother. I don't mind people deferring, any information from me. I'm always open to critique. I'm always open to conversation. And if I'm wrong, I will come live. I will literally go live and tell you I'm wrong or I was wrong on something. Like I had a time where I posted a source showing, I did post a source. I posted a screenshot, or I posted a source of Ibero-Mauritanians having E1B1A. But I ended up talking to the author of the paper that wrote the study on the Ibero-Mauritanians, and they basically told me that, hey, maybe in the future it would be resampled as E1B1A, but as of now it's not, so I had to come back and do a whole live and explain, how I, misstepped myself, or I misspoke, and actually show what the scientists broke down. So yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, Egypt, Kush, descends from Japheth. Ham is mostly found in Europe and Americas. Yeah, that's false. Ham is mostly found in Africa today. Ham is primarily found in Africa today. You have Japheth in Africa today, and you also have Shem in Africa today. Now, as far as Ham being outside of Africa, you do have instances of finding Hamitic lineages outside of Africa. You do find A lineages in Europe. You do find B lineages in Europe today, and even other places in the Middle East. And even in America, I think you did have a B sample in the Americas. So you do have these people scattered throughout of Africa, but primarily they are situated in Africa. And even when it comes to Japheth, primarily they are situated in Europe and the Near East. Facts. Some leaders of Egypt were our groups. So yeah, they were Japheth. And exactly. And it also shows you the integration of different peoples, of different cultures into Africa, the place that we thought, we originally thought was only inhabited by one race of people. So we have to realize Africa is not homogeneous. Yes, Shem and Japheth do dwell together in Africa as well as Ham. Especially, I can give you East Africa. It's a great place to look to find descendants of Shem and Ham. Although they all look the same, you have A markers, you have B markers, you have EP2s, you have E1B1Bs, you have E1B1As, you have Ts, you have Js. You know what I'm saying? All in East Africa. They look alike. So this shows different founding or different fathers coming into those populations over different migration events. So again, AB is Ham. I agree. DE Yap is Shem. I agree. CFM 134 is Japheth, all right, which it includes FM89 lineages, the father of GHIJK, that splits, making even IJK and KM9. So another way we know that these lineages are differentiated as well, because, for example, every D lineage, every E lineage, they will be Yap positive. And even those CF lineages, or even the F lineages, they will be associated with the M89 branch. Yeah, so I think I know where you're getting this information from, sister, but it's not true. It's not true genetically, and it's certainly not true, I guess you can say historically. Canaanites, descendants of Ham, are not Chinese, or even the Canaanites, period. They will not be the Chinese people or the Khazar people. Now, if we can show a migration of Canaanites into China, into Khazaria, then we can say, hey, we have Canaanites in this location. But that doesn't make every single Chinese person of Khazar a Canaanite. Again, most most Chinese people and Khazars are descendants of Japheth. And you do have some who would be descendants of Shem by way of the D branch. The brother says, I agree, gotta strive for salvation regardless of bloodline. Facts. White dad, black mom. I don't believe in the one drop rule, since I see it as racist and unscientific. Love your page and videos. Agree, brother. It is racist and unscientific, because you can descend from, I guess you can say, you can descend from a white male and not know it because you don't look like it. You know what I'm saying? Until you analyze your genome and you see, throughout the history, you come from a white male, and your people just mixed with a black populace. So I do agree with that as well, brother. Yeah, I definitely know where you're getting this information from. Chinese people are not Semites, all right? Chinese people are not Semites, all right? These are three node clades that split from CT/BT Noah, while A00 is signs of ancient genetic Adam who would have no mutations yet bring forth A000 and A000, as well as the derived A0 till us ABDECF. So the brother, this why I specifically told you to go watch that video, because I knew you was going to get confused. Yes, haplogroup J is Japheth. I said specifically from the onstart, the descendants of Canaan would have been Canaanites. We all know that scripture says you would have descendants of Japheth invade the territories of Shem or the Levant. If we look at history, we look at genetic remains, we look at everything together, we will come to the understanding that right before the Exodus events, you had Japhetic invasions into the Levant, into Israel. So by the time the Israelites made their way into the Levant, those people would not have been authentic descendants of Ham. These people would have been coming from the Caucasus region. We see this reflected in their genome, their skin gradation, and also their material culture. So yes, J is Japheth, but the Canaanites of the Israelite period would have been these J groups. And again, please go watch my video, Japhetic Invasions in the Levant, for a better understanding. Yeah, sister, that ain't right. Yeah. But brother, I hope you understand what I was just saying, because I know that confused a lot of people. Well, how are the Canaanites J if that's Japhet? You gotta understand. You gotta take everything into account, because trust me, I was confused at first. Once I started to dig into this information, but if you're still confused, I can try to break it down for you. Um, yeah, Queen Esther, she would not carry a Y chromosome. She would carry a mtDNA. We can speculate that her Y chromosome would be E3A from her father or from one of her male relatives. So, yeah, we could speculate that. Exactly, my brother. Exactly. J is Japhet as well, because what? J comes from IJ. Exactly. So if anybody's saying J is Semitic, that means I is Semitic as well, right? Because J comes from IJK. Excuse me, J comes from IJ. IJ split into I and J. J made their way into places like Armenia, the Near East, and even down into the Levant, and even East and North Africa, and even into Arabia. J made their way a lot of places, all right? J made their way into a lot of places. Facts, facts, facts. Yes, blessings to the brother. He bringing out the truth. He's bringing out the truth. He knows the history about his clade. Definitely. So the brother says the basal para haplogroup or the para group JHJ or HIJK has been found in Mesolithic European Magadalian Goyotiq T or 2, and the basal IJK was found in the upper Paleolithic European site as well. Now that's very interesting. It's showing a migration of these people, because we started to see these people. These people didn't, well, I guess you could say haplogroup J didn't pop up into the Levant until when? Bronze Age. And we see that their ancestor IJK was all the way up in the Paleolithic Europe. So that's just showing a migration, branching off from the root to the main clade. People say Israel is in America because they want things to fit their narrative. They want Native Americans to be Israelites so bad that they're going to say, you know what, we have no proof that they are Israelites. We have no, I guess you could say, solid source material to prove that they're Israelites. So we're just going to say the land of Israel is in America. There's no evidence. One thing we have to start doing is analyzing all these claims. A lot of these claims are just laughable. There's no evidence for Israel being in Africa or the Americas. It's just not. All the evidence is in the Levant. And I believe I did a pretty good job at showing that. A lot of people just don't like to read. A lot of people just don't like to study. And that's what's wrong with the community. And that's why we have all these doctrines going on. Simply because somebody will go live like I'm doing right now. They will teach, or they will lay out the information that they're going to show. And instead of the audience going and reviewing what was put out, they just take it as face value. All right. So that's why people are saying it, because they want people to believe their narrative. Facts, facts, facts. Didn't Canaan get spread to the four corners after Babel? Everybody got spread after the Tower of Babel, brother. Canaan, or the sons of Ham, were said to go to their respective territories. Sons of Shem, their respective territories. Sons of Japhet, or Japhet, their respective territories, with their respective languages. All right, because remember, they were separated by their languages. Right, the oldest E1B1A sons we confirmed is not actually African by the connections from Mesopotamia, and even with that, it's a brother that keep trying to say that that E1B1A was reclassified as J or something, which is laughable, because I haven't saw any updated papers on that E1B1A being classified. You know, that just shows the hate for this specific group, because they didn't say E1B1B was reclassified as J either. They just say E1B1A, because they forget that both E1B1A and E1B1B was found in these cultures together. But only E1B1A was reclassified as another haplogroup. Yeah, it's all good, sis, man. We all, we all got to study and make ourselves approve. We all have room to grow in our learning. I will say that we all have room to grow. But that's just from what I've learned. I know where that doctrine is coming from, and it's not true based off everything that I've found from my studies and my research. It can't be true, just based off genetics alone and even the history. And another thing the brother wants to point out is all E1B1A fossils that we found came from outside of Africa, right? We really don't have any ancient samples of E1B1A in Africa, if we want to be honest. Nope. See, I'm not trying to get on you, brother, but I would say no. I just had a debate over this with a brother. He was trying to say DE originated in East Africa, but again, it's not probable based off the information I brought out, or based off the information we have. We don't even have a DE sample in East Africa. We don't have a D sample in West. We don't have a DE. We don't have a D, or we don't have an E sample in ancient Africa to base this theory that it originated in this location. DE more than likely originated from the information, and even the information I brought out in my debate, it originated more than likely in Asia, with D, or with DE arising and giving rise to the D-Yap insertion over there in that area. And you would have the E branch back migrating towards the Africa region, giving rise to the E1s, the E1As, the EM2s, the E1B1Bs, and all that thing. So no, DE would not be original to Northeast Africa. And another thing you got to remember, those people in West Africa with D or with DE are living people. They're not fossils. All right. And we also got to remember there's DE samples in Arabia. There's DE samples in Iraq. There's DE samples in Japan. There's DE samples in the Andaman Islands. So you will not just find people with DE in West Africa. And on top of that is two. You have millions of people with these clades, in the Near East. So again, DE would have arose more than likely somewhere in the Near East, and these two different, I guess you could say, subclades would have back migrated, or the subclade E would have back migrated to Africa. According to the Book of Jubilees, Canaan moved into the Levant after the Tower of Babel, and it's even a tradition that Shem settled the Levant first. It's even a Jewish tradition that Shem settled the Levant before Canaan. All right, Shem himself settled the Levant before Canaan. But I'm not going to get into that. If you know about the brother Hebrew of Israel, he definitely will be bringing that information out soon. So I say you all should check out his channel to look at that legend of Shem founding the Levant before Canaan, which is very interesting. And of course, he brings out scripture references as well. I thought E1B1A was identifying all the descendants of Jacob. Isn't that the case anymore? No, that's not the case, because again, we have E1B1A in places way before Israel. We found E1B1A samples in France. We found E1B1A samples in Iran, Turkmenistan, etc., and even Peru, America, way before there was an Israelite. Same thing for the E1B1B groups. We found these clades way before there was Israelites. So when it comes to saying the Israelites will be one of these clades, it would have to be a specific mutation, or starting from a specific mutation. We can't say, Jacob was V38. Okay, we can't say that. We can say Jacob was a E1B1A clade, though. All right, if that makes sense. And again, brother, this is going on to what the brother Teutonic Knight was saying. There are no fossils of D culture in Africa. Paleolithic, Mesolithic, nor the Neolithic. So that's very important to remember. Also, the ancient inhabitants of West Africa were haplogroups A and B. I brought that paper out in my last video, Ancient Inhabitants of East and West Africa. The ancient inhabitants of East Africa, haplogroup A and B. I brought that out as well. And the ancient inhabitants of North Africa would have been A and B as well. So at some point in time, E would have back migrated. I see my boy Jacob Israel in the chat, man. What's up? He says you're the grandfather of Akhenaten, was G2A and was the royal horsekeeper and father of Queen Tai. That should make Teo and Yakuba happy. That definitely should make them happy, brother. That definitely should make them happy, man. They was Egyptian royalty, right? They Egyptian royalty. Come on, man. You was in Egypt. The brother Hebrewism, Hebrew Israelism states that Israelites were JP58. What's up, brother? How you doing? Although we know that's false. Also, weren't you all found in the Canaanite remains? Aren't you all Canaanites? Isn't JP58 Canaanite? Yeah, definitely give it a watch. Definitely give it a watch. Brother Jacob or brother Hebrewism. I keep calling you by your real name. Jacob Israel. I know who you are. And the Southern Ark paper definitely does not prove that J was Shem's line. It definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't. Especially when we know that you all showed up in the Bronze Age and you all were definitely found in the Canaanite burials. Not only that, we know the origins of J. I know you have this whole, theory of Abraham coming from Anatolia or Armenia, something like that. So I'm not even going to debate with you on that. But my channel is free for you to come up and show your information if you would like, brother. We know J is not Shem. We know JP58 is not Israelites. We know this. We've shown this. And I can show it again if I need to. As J Foster start in Caucasus to Finland and split in Russia 10,000 to 5,000 years ago. We know this. This is facts. But where did the ancestor of JP58 originate? Where did the ancestor of JP58 originate, brother? Matter of fact, the brother literally just told us. We actually know that J comes from IJ. So if J is Shem, that means I is Shem. So it's I Shem as well. And we definitely know that JP58 originated in the Levant. We're not saying, in the Near East. We're not saying that. But just because it originated in the Near East doesn't mean it's Shem. Especially when you relate it to these other CF groups. And you don't even descend from the Proto-Afro-Asiatics. I'm not even Jacob Israel love coming here stirring up stuff. They say Israel is in America because the Book of Jubilees says Shem land is neither hot nor cold doctrine. That just shows you the minds of grown men. Grown men. This just shows you the comprehension of grown men. Because the Book of Jubilees says Shem land is neither hot nor cold, it has to be America. We have to do better. J made itself. J is of IJ, of IJK, of HI. Exactly. It has a root, brother. If J is Shem, CF is Shem. That's what you're failing to realize. Shalom, my brother. Thank you for tuning in, man. I really appreciated you in the chat, brother. Thank you for tuning in. And God be with you as well, brother. Thank you. We've already saw this, brother. I've saw it. And a paper can, say that J is this and that all day, but we know it's not. The brother High be praised says the fact that there is no ancient human remains in sub-Saharan Africa is making a lot of these Eurocentrics' blood boil. Thank you. It is. It is. And a lot of people say, well, there's a lot of people like to say it's because of the temperature or the terrain of the Sahara, which is why there's not a lot of E1B1A remains found. And my thing is, if they were going to find them, they would have found them amongst the samples that they've already found, right? So I say we didn't come in. I say we didn't start getting EM2s into Africa until 3,000, 2,500 years ago. Between that time period, between 3 and 2,000 years ago. The brother says the Israelites only lived 3,500 years before prison. So what's the difference does it make if J originated in the Caucasus? Abraham could come from southern Turkey. Yes, that's all true, but you're still forgetting, brother. Where does J come from? The ancestors of J do not speak Afro-Asiatic languages. The ancestors of J do not speak Semitic languages. The ancestors of J are not descendants of Shem. You have to be monophyletic. You have to backtrack, brother. What was before J? It's laughable that you're trying to put these people as Israelites, brother. The modern Jewish people are made up of Canaanites. That this brother, who the brother Hebrew of Israel is trying to make Jews. Okay, the modern Jews are made up of actual Jews, Semites, and converts. Or I guess you could say people that came into the faith, descendants of Japheth. Prove it, brother. Prove it, brother. Would you like to come up, brother? Would you like to come up? I'm finna have to end this live anyway, because we're going to, matter of fact, meet us at Lion Forum channel, okay? Can you meet us at Lion Forum channel at 3? Since you got so much to say about this. Or you could just hop on stream real quick, brother. I always give you the opportunity to hop on screen. I'm not aggressive. I'm not disrespectful. I may laugh at you, but that's about it. If haplogroup J is associated with the earliest inhabitants of Europe and the Caucasus, it would be impossible for them to be Shemitic markers. Exactly. That's why I'm just like telling this brother, man, you have to, be logical. You have to go back. You're starting with J and assuming that they're Israelites. We're not going into their ancestry, not going into the linguistics, not going into their migratory patterns. All right. Because J originated in the Levant, or because JP58, because he says JP58 originated in the Levant, is an Israelite. All right, but we know that the Israelites haplogroup wouldn't have originated in the Levant per se. It would have been coming down from Abraham, going into Egypt, and then going into the Levant. Matter of fact, JP58 was in the Levant before the Israelite Exodus. The only new haplogroup that showed up in the Levant 3,400 years ago was EM2. And you can look that up in the genetic history of the Levant. I mean, the genetic history of African gene flow in the Levant, Jews and Southern Europeans. Thank you. They are the originators of Indo-European and Indo-Iranians. So exactly, brother, exactly. You just killed yourself. J split and some went north and others went south. So what? So who are those people that went north? Are they descendants of Shem as well? Are they Jews as well? Who are they? You can't just say JP58 is Jews. I agree that they assimilated into the Jewish population, but they are not descendants of Jacob, brother. They are not. Modern Jews are descendants of ancient Jews, ancient Semites, and ancient converts. Don't matter if they white or black. All right. You have white Jews that descend from the same Jews the Igbos descend from. Right? You have white Jews that descend from the same source that you will have your Berber Jews descended from. All right, so we have a lot of white Jews with haplogroup E. So they would be, authentic Semites. No, brother, he don't have a source. He doesn't have a source. He doesn't. Yeah, you can join the stream if you would like, brother. I'm going to just say that one more time. So Abraham, Ibra, Arphaxad is the southern Mesopotamia, northeast Arabia, according to Jubilees and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is interesting because that northeast Arabia, that Arabo-Persian Gulf area, is also said to be the homeland of the Baso-Eurasians, which gave rise to the Ibero-Maurusians and the Natufians. So that's very interesting. Do you mind, if you know what specific part of the Book of Jubilees that is in, I'd love for you to put that in the chat if you know it. If not, it's cool. Thank you. Exactly. There is no ancient EM2 remains in sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa, and the Eurocentric is peeved about it. They are. They are because, again, we've been taught that we've always been in West Africa, running around but naked, swinging from trees, and chasing out the food. When in fact, a lot of those people coming into West Africa that got caught up in the slave trade, have nothing to do with those autochthonous populations. Is EU 290 sub-Saharan African, sub-Saharan or East Eurasian? Did you mean East African? But it is sub-Saharan African, and I'm pretty sure you can find it amongst Eurasian peoples or Near Eastern peoples today. I'm pretty sure you can find it amongst Eurasian or Near Eastern peoples today, especially in Arabia and things like that. I'm actually looking at Y4, so yeah. For example, we do find this in sub-Saharan Africa, of course, and places like Yemen and Arabia. So I'm just showing my screen real quick. So again, this is EU 290. And of course, we see it in the Yoruba. We see it in the Mendi people, the people we just went over today concerning the Bani Israel. And as well as Senegal. We see it in the Americas, like Barbados. And we see a mutation of it in Saudi Arabia and Yemen and Bahrain. So yes, we do find EU 290 in, guess you can say, Eurasia or the Near East. Places like Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Bahrain. Also Kuwait and Qatar, all right? Where is this? Colombia, that's the Americas. So yeah, you definitely can find it in the Near East or Eurasia. You also find it in the Northern Kingdom or the United Kingdom amongst those descendants, more than likely descendants of slaves. What is this? Oh, we got something popping up in Oman as well. So yeah, there is a connection. Brother says the land of Ur-Kadesh is below Syria and Assyria according to Jubilees. Interesting. Okay, that's cool. You know my name you do know my name on Facebook as well. I believe you do. You should. So, like I say, man, if you ever want to have a conversation, please feel free to hit me up, bro. Because I definitely don't believe at all Jay is Semitic. I believe it is a Semitic assimilator. I believe it is a Semitic speaker. But again, I do not believe it is a descendant of Shem. That's facts. E1B1A is all in southern Iraq, southern Iran, southern Arabia, Southeast Arabian region. Not only that, it's also in Palestine. It's also amongst the Bedouins. It's also amongst Israelis. It's also amongst Lebanese Christians. It's also amongst Lebanese Muslims. It's also amongst Druze. So it's E1B1A is all in Israel still today. People just don't know. So it's M2. Oh, so it's M2 Israel. Yes, Jews would be M2. But again, maybe I need to do a video on this specific topic. What lineages I believe the Israelites could have. All right. Maybe I need to do a video on that. EM329, I believe that's E1B1AC, E1B1A2. That's in like centered mainly in the eastern part. So it's in East Africa and Arabia. So a lot of Arabs and a lot of what are they called? Omadic people have this specific clade. Yes, I agree with you, brother. I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, but just make sure you hit me up, man. Matter of fact, if you want to, I will literally let you come on the channel and show your theory for the origins of JP58 being Israelites. It says, why are people still trying to make J Semitic? The origin of J does not support the claim that they are Semitic. J is a Eurasian haplogroup. It has nothing to do with any Afro-Semitic language. Thank you. Thank you. J had nothing to do with the Afro-Asiatic populations or the languages. They showed up during the time of, I guess you could say, the time of the Bronze Age, and they assimilated into the population and started to speak Semitic languages. Matter of fact, let me read. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pull it out. Should I pull it out real quick? I'm trying to get ready to wrap this up so I can get ready for the video with Lion Farm. Let me see if I can pull something out real quick. I might pull something out real quick to show you that they... Let me see if I can pull this out real quick. If not, man, just go back and watch Genetic History of Shem, dealing with the genetic invasions into the Levant. But those FM89 lineages definitely, matter of fact, let me read this. Where is it? 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 One second. I'm really trying to find this source. It actually might be in this one. Okay, give me 1 second, family. Sorry for the dead air. All right, so this is something interesting right here, my brother. I want to read for you. Dealing with haplogroup J being, I guess you could say, assimilators. So I'm gonna share this, and then I'm gonna wrap up the comments. Then again, you can catch me on the Brother Lion Farm channel if you need or if you would like. So share my screen. Let me take this off, and I'm gonna read this. This is coming from the genetics of African populations in health, in health and disease. Again, this is coming from the genetics of African population in health and disease, and we're gonna start right here where it reads. Let me start. Let's start on this page. It states that, for example, Jacob Israel, Underhill et al., 2000, states that the V38/M35 lineage was carried into the Near East from Africa in the Mesolithic. This V38/M35 in Africa corresponds to the TAC-L49AFV. It is far more likely that Proto-Semitic speakers went into the Near East at this time, where the Semitic languages have long since dominated, but the predominant haplotypes in the Semitic-speaking populations are variants 7 and 8 in this specific system, which is equivalent to FM89 associating lineages. All right, these haplotypes 7 and 8 actually includes like J1 and J2. The most parsimonious explanation is that ancestral Semitic was adopted by those bearing haplotypes right here, 7 and 8, V2 and V3, which is associated with haplogroup FM89. And we know that would include haplogroup J. So actually, FM89 lineages like haplogroup J actually assimilated Afro-Asiatic languages from E1B1A and E1B1B, right? V38 and V35. There's also one more source I can read from that kind of says the same thing right here. Let's read this real quick because it says something else or says something very familiar or similar, dealing with those people adopting Semitic languages. Because again, they would have been adopting it from E1B1A, E1B1B, and even EP2 carriers. Origin of Samosis. And they showed that the Natufians spoke the Afro-Asiatic languages just before this language started to disintegrate into daughter languages. The Natufians did not have haplogroup J. Linguists were the first to show that Indo-Europeans inhabited some territory in the Near East, later known as Anatolia, some 8 millennia ago, that they were strongly influenced by both Semites, the descendants of the above mentioned Afro-Asians, and by hairy Caucasians. Indo-Europeans borrowed from them many cultural words, designations of various domesticated animals and plants, tools, religious terms, and so on. This is talking about those F-89 lineages. And didn't you say haplogroup J or Abraham came from Armenia? Yeah, I know. I mean, Anatolia. And I mean, yeah, I know, because you all came down into the Levant and you adopted these languages from the Natufian and their descendant populations, which later become the Afro-Asiatics and the Semites. So again, V38, V35, V38, M35 would have been original Proto-Semite speakers, and you all would have came and I guess you say took it over. So who are the people with J? If J is an Israelite lineage, wouldn't those other people with J be descendants of Shem as well? I don't believe so. All right. I'll be looking forward. He left. I should have looked at this before I started reading. He left. He didn't even see it. Did he see it? Maybe, I guess. Sephardic Jews are 9.8% EM2. That's facts. And it's even some papers. I have a paper that says they're like, 20 EM2? But it's older, right? It's not new. It's old. It says they like 20% EM2. So I will throw that caveat out there. Islam would have came from, I guess you could say, the Levant area, Arabia, to North Africa, down into the Maghreb region, and to the Sahara. But it would have been started with groups like J and E1B1B, just because they was in that area. But what's interesting is, once we get into the history of the Islam invasions coming to West Africa, we don't see any J lineages associated with it. So I believe those early Islamic origins would have been associated with those E groups. So he just said, sister just said, I just checked Delta State where I'm from. We have the highest, E1B1A7, while the Yorubas have them from 0.6 to 7. We have the highest. Igbos have them at 0.7. And I believe she's naming off the percent that's left out. Like, for example, I believe the Yorubas are like 93, 97% E1B1A. So this 0.6 will be that lineage that is not E1B1A. And even the Igbos, they are 90% E1B1A. So this 0.7 would be the percent of E1B. This 0.7 would be the percent of Igbos that are not E1B1A. And what's interesting is that the Yoruba have like 1% haplogroup R. It's interesting. So last comment states, I am all for the Bible, brother. I'm just asking because the Muslims keep mocking Yahusha, and it annoys me. Just wondering where it came from. Yeah, that's facts. Even it's a history of Jews in Morocco being mocked by the Muslims because they was like, one of the leaders was like, we tired of hearing about y'all Messiah that y'all keep saying go come at the turn of the century. The time is over. It's time for you to, convert to Islam. get persecuted or die. You know what I'm saying? So even the Jews in Morocco was talking about, you know, a Messiah figure coming up, and I guess you could say the Muslims got irritated by it. But I thank you all. I thank you all for tuning in to this video, man. I appreciate you all. I will chop this video up into sections, dealing with the specific tribes we dealt with, for you all, so you can go back over it, write, take notes or whatever you need to do. I hope you all enjoyed this again. Yeah, I know you're talking about E1 B187. I know. So I hope you all enjoyed this. We did bring out the information about the Banai Israel in connections to the Mandi people, like the Bafor, the Saniki, and the Dan. So again, I hope you all enjoyed this. Shalom. Catch me on the Brother Lion Farm channel in about 24 minutes. And enjoy the rest of you all's day. All right. Toda, and thank you all for tuning in.